Hello everyone, and welcome to Tsukuba, at least for the initial portion of this event. This is the AMX ESPORTS Championship, the premier esports racing competition in South Korea. My name is Connery Maddock, and I'll be joined by Sumil Aurora for both this race and, of course, the rest of the season as well. We are very thankful to have all of you joining us here today on the English stream. Of course, we do have the Korean stream going on as well over on Africa TV. But we're all set, we're all ready and raring to go here on the English broadcast. And my word, this is something just a little bit different, isn't it, Sumil? It's going into a region where us as RaceSpot has never gone before. The rise of esports in East Asia in particular has been absolutely incredible over the past couple of decades, but now we're just getting their feet dipped into the esports racing side of things.
That's absolutely correct. I mean, if you take a look at any major esports event, South Korean players will almost always be at the top of it. But in the world of sim racing, things are only just evolving, and this particular event, Conway, will be a revolution of sorts, because being honest here, no commentator sugarcoating, there really never has been anything of this sort here in South Korea, ever.
There hasn't, and we are in an absolutely fantastic spot with Automatics, who are the organisers of this competition. Of course, we've been helping out behind the scenes here at RaceSpot as well to try and put on these events. But what are these events, I hear you ask? Well, we've got a little bit of an explainer for you here today. The racing that you'll see here, of course, there for the actual AMX Esports Championship. I'll get into the Junior Cup in a little bit, but this is the main championship where we'll have 10 professional teams, and 10 teams that have passed qualification will compete to become the first champion of the AMX Esports Championship. The teams, well, they will consist with one real driver from the real world that holds a Korean racing license. Then we'll have one influencer as part of the team as well. And then, of course, we will have one sim driver. We have the sim driver event first, and of course on different weeks we will have the influencer event, and of course then we'll have the real life drivers get themselves out there on circuit as well. So you know, it's an interesting element, these teams, Sumil. It's you've got, of course, the experience of the sim drivers and the real life experience of the real drivers, but the influencers can be a little bit of a wild card, because I'm told by the organizers that a lot of the influencers are, I would say, are Korean sim racing sort of YouTubers and streamers, but also some of the influencers are things like models and play other games on Africa TV and Twitch and things like that. So it's quite a broad spectrum of people taking part.
Exactly, and it's going to be so fun, right? That's going to be the wild card, the perfect word that you mentioned right there. And you never know which way it's going to go. I mean, you could see a situation where teams and drivers may actually train the influencer in the coming week, help them get better, and by the time we do see the influencers racing next week, they might be extremely good when they have never touched a sim before. That sort of stuff might end up happening, and it really excites me to see what sort of gap will we see in the influencer category, and moreover, how hard will they race? Because remember, racing may not be their primary profession or the thing that they've done all their lives. For them, this is brand new, and seeing how they take to it is exciting me a lot at this stage.
Yeah, we'll discuss a lot more about that when we get to next week's events with the influencers. That will be at the Daytona Oval course in GT3 cars, which is a pretty interesting predicament, let me tell you that. Speaking of schedule, here's the overall schedule for the events for this season. We'll have 9 online events, just like this one, involving first the sim drivers, then the influencers, then the real drivers, in that order, in those groups of 3. But after 3 races, we'll go to a live event. We will go to LAN. All of these drivers will be competing on site in Seoul, South Korea, and they'll be able to see each other eye to eye, I suppose. And those live events have sort of a different vibe, a different element to them, and some drivers do particularly well at live events, some drivers fall short.
That's extremely right. The nerves can get to you when you've got live audiences with you, when you can see your competitors right across the screen. That will be quite something. And the Africa Coliseum, I beg your pardon, is such a huge place, Conrad. Such a big event. Everything that happens there really adds a certain amount of charm to it. You can feel the intensity, you can feel the pressure of any esports event going on there, not just this one. That will just elevate the stakes even higher for 9 rounds this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, the format for those particular events will be a little bit different from what we see here today due to the fact they have team racing and they can get the in-person driver changes as well. So they have to pull one person out of the rig, put another person back into the rig. And, it's just like it is in real world in endurance racing with those driver changes. So I'm very, very excited for that when they arrive for round 4, 5, and 6, at least initially. And then, of course, going through the rest of the season, we will have our grand final at the live event as well. So absolutely fantastic stuff, but we've got to move along a little bit here and just take a look at our Junior Cup, because this is the support event, I would say, to the main esports championship here. These young drivers here competing in the Radical SR8s and, of course, using lots of free content as well, just to make it a little bit more accessible for them. But they'll be starting off the first round here at Tsukuba Circuit, the 2000 layout. I mean, any layout at Tsukuba is incredibly short and the lap times are incredibly quick, but these guys right here in practice are doing about 50-second lap times at this circuit.
They are. It's just like a glorified go-kart track that many may call it. But Tsukuba, there are only a couple of overtaking opportunities, which means that all these junior drivers will have to showcase something really special, some extremely good racecraft. With younger drivers, you may see outstanding pace. They may be young hotshots, but passing there and constructing good moves is going to be a big lesson that they are going to learn here, and also give us a lesson about, considering the way they're going to drive right now. It's going to be fun, and the car that we've chosen for the Junior Championship, oh, what a selection this is.
Yeah, this is absolutely brilliant. Of course, all free content on iRacing, so they just need to pay for their subscription, and that will be it. They can drive the car, they can drive on the tracks. It's absolutely fantastic indeed. Of course, these guys are competing for a decent scholarship money at the end of the season, so they'll be able to support them in their studies a little bit more as far as this goes. So it's a great prize to go searching for these guys. So as we wait for the qualifying session to start here in just a couple of moments' time, Sumil, it's a great opportunity for these young drivers. Not only one to show us what they're made of as far as esports racers, because remember, these guys might be the future top players in terms of esports racing in South Korea, but also they get that extra cash, that extra scholarship to help them in their studies, just in case this esports thing doesn't work out for them.
Exactly. 2000 USD is the scholarship prize for the winner of the Junior Championship. It's huge. It offers such a big chance, right? Because if you're, say, someone competing in the junior category and you end up winning, imagine how many top Korean esports teams or iRacing teams might be looking out for you, for a driver of your caliber, for a younger person who can eventually become their big marketable star. I think this is it's a really good platform, much like Formula 2 or Formula 3 in the world of single-seater racing, where the big bosses are watching, where the big audiences are watching. For sure, it brings along a different level of pressure, events like this one, but it also means that when you succeed, it's at a grander stage, and the impact of that will be amplified.
Yeah, these are the very, very early stages of esports racing in South Korea. Of course, there's been competitions on other games and on other platforms, but none really quite as big as this one. And none, of course, this is the first one here on iRacing, which is considered by many to be a very, very serious simulator and very realistic compared to a lot of the other games that these drivers might have competed in the past. So that's just a sort of different element there, just sort of factoring in. I really can't wait to see the development of this esports scene in South Korea, because we know how popular things like League of Legends and Overwatch is, and PUBG and things like that. But esports racing, just like in Europe and the US, we're starting to get there in terms of the popularity of our scene. And if South Korea especially embraces it with open arms, then it could really catapult it into somewhere where we never thought it would go.
That's right, but you've got to show the people what it's all about, and this is the intent of this very event. We've got so many influencers who are famous in the mainstream. When the audience comes up to watch an event like this one, I'm pretty sure that you're going to have a jolly good time, because this event is going to show you exactly what hardcore sim racing is all about. And I came into sim racing exactly in the same way, watching one of these broadcasts. Who knows, that could be the same way for you as well.
Yeah, yeah, it was. I mean, I first started commentating coming into, just watching different RaceSpotTV broadcasts way back when, and then I just thought, I want to do that. I messaged a few people, and somehow they accepted me. But as far as sim racing, that was way back in 2012 for me, so it's quite, it's almost 9 years, in sim racing right now. And of course, I was a fan of racing games ever since before that, but that was just my iRacing experience. But we are just about... enough about me and more about the racing. We're just about to get ourselves into the qualifying session then for the Junior Cup here in the AMX ESPORTS Championship. There they are out there. They've got 10 minutes of open qualifying to be able to get their lap time set. And, sometimes, especially at a circuit this short, Sumil, it can be quite tricky to try and find a spot.
That's absolutely right. We've got around 20 odd cars around here, and Tsukuba is such a short circuit. You might not see as many open areas of space, which may mean that sometimes your lap time could be compromised by dirty air, or aero wash, is what many people like to call it. And the Radical SR8, this car is very, very aero reliant. So when you end up getting that dirty air, when you end up being in those pockets of many, many cars, eventually your lap time could be slower. And it's not like you're going to gain a lot on the straights as well, because at Tsukuba, there are barely any. So slipstream, well, it may be a useful factor in the race, but in qualifying, maybe not as much.
Yeah, there we go. As we see Yunho Zhang here out of the final corner. Of course, the laps do come very fast and very, very furious here. So with the 10 minutes that they have allotted, they'll be able to get a good handful of laps under their belt. They can get 10, 11 or so laps in before the end of the session. So there's ample opportunity for you to be able to get that fast lap in and to give yourself the best chance of getting that good position on the starting grid coming into the 20-minute race that we'll have here today. Of course, it's basically just a 20-minute sprint. There will be no scheduled stops here, both in this Junior Cup and in the AMX Esports Championship as well. So it's a straight run to the end, driver versus driver, and of course the track as well. And we can see the early qualifying order on the left-hand side of your screen there. Junho Zhang, excuse me, as sometimes it is pretty difficult to wrap our heads around the pronunciation of the name. Of course, we did have a lesson about it a little bit earlier yesterday, but Yunho Park to the top of the timing orders for now just has that just over a tenth of a second advantage over his competitor.
He does, and speaking about clocking in multiple laps, thankfully they do, as you mentioned. They can go up there clocking some 8, 9, 10 laps, but for how long will they be able to maintain their concentration? Because Tsukuba is a demanding circuit. Corners come after you, left, right, and center. So holding your nerves, holding your calmness to go out there for 10 qualifying laps is going to be a superb challenge. And so for them, dialing it in during qualifying without getting your heart rate oh so high is going to be such an interesting challenge. Luckily for Yunho Park right now, he's got a pocket of free space, but again, blink of the eye and it's gone.
Yeah, it is, as driver squeezes in ahead of him. Of course, that can be both a blessing and a curse, depending on which track you're talking about. Of course, you would like a driver ahead of you in qualifying if you are at a draft-dependent circuit. You can gain a lot of time that way, but a track as tight and technical as this, you probably don't want someone ahead of you. Even if they're not actively blocking you or impeding your progress, it's just a distraction ahead of you. And some drivers tend to follow in the tyre tracks of the driver ahead of you. Of course, that is not quite the fastest way around.
That absolutely isn't. And what can also happen is that when you're chasing somebody during qualifying, you tend to imitate their braking points, your turning points. But if they make a mistake, poof, you make a mistake as well. And as we can see on track, sometimes the drivers are ending up losing it. So you don't want to do that. You just want to focus on your own stuff. But how boring does that sound, focusing on your own stuff? But that's the important thing right here. Doing the boring stuff eventually gets you the most time. And right now, that seems to be a hard thing to do.
Yep, it does, as Jung Boom here. Very, very haphazard coming up through the first couple of corners there and just skips up across the grass. So of course, you know, if you're unfamiliar to iRacing, then you will know that once you step a foot out of line, you get yourself an off track. That will mean that your lap is invalid, so you can't. That lap won't count towards your actual qualifying time. So you do have to be very careful, and Hong Jun Boom is really struggling to keep a hold of that car at the moment.
And why would he not? It's a Radical SR8. This car is so light, it's so nimble. The dry weight of this car is only 600 kilograms or 1,320 pounds. That is a featherweight, this car. And so keeping hold of it without the traction control, without ABS, becomes such a hard challenge. This right here is a driver's car. And if you can end up winning in this junior championship, it'll be mighty impressive, because even sometimes the pros, they find it hard to handle this car too.
Yeah, very, very difficult indeed. As you know, even though it is a free car, it is not the easiest car to get a handle of. It's you know, it's quite fast for what is a free car, and it's got a lot of downforce on it, and it can be a little bit tail happy, as you can see with Hee Jung-han here, as he took that big old slide through turn 1.
Exactly. This car will snap and snap hard on you. When I first tried the Radical SR8, I thought it'll be okay. It's more like a track day car, isn't it? But then, the speed on the turn-ins, it is just so nimble. Honestly, it feels very similar to the Formula 1 cars on iRacing in terms of just the way they attack the corner. Not so much on the straights, but still, you get the idea. It's a mighty fast machine, and just keeping it on the track, controlling it on the corners is hard enough. Imagine, Connery, going side by side with someone around the final corner at Tsukuba.
Yeah, just imagine that. It's we might get to see it, you will. Sometimes these races can be a little bit crazy, or at least I get that feeling. Of course, we had a test event with the sim drivers on Friday, just to make sure everything technically was working okay with both the servers and the broadcast. And Hee Jung-han, for I think that's the 3rd time in a row that he's gone for a bit of a slide there, coming through the first turn. Driver yet to set a time yet, though, and he's still on pit lane. There's Tae-hyun Kim, who still not got out there, so maybe some technical issues there for the driver of the number 16 car. But everyone else, 17 of 18 drivers have set themselves times.
They have indeed. Seems to be an interesting gap right now, barely under 0.2 of a second, which isn't too bad at this stage. But I get a feeling that Song Yong-kang will be closing it up, will be perhaps attacking the mark where we only have a 10th, or maybe even less than that heading into qualifying. And what sort of a brilliant indicator will that be for the race coming up?
Yeah, it would be, as we have a good couple of tenths of a second spread on the very top of the order there. Of course, Yun-ho Park and Seong Yong-kang are very, very close indeed, as they are just about a tenth and a half of a second. I will get my words in the right order at some point here, but yeah, very, very close at the top of the timing order. There's your current pole position sitter, as we do get ourselves the driver pictures up. There we go. We can see Yun-ho Park in his seemingly very cheerful in his picture, I will say. Yeah, he's currently pole position. He's obviously, for him, in this latter part of the session here, it's just all about him trying to extend his time and try and get a little bit more of a buffer back to the number 5.
Exactly, and is it a surprise that Yun-ho Park is right at the top of the timing screen? I wouldn't say so, because he really is a complete sim racer at his heart. Really lost the sport big time and has been driving for the last 2 years. Now, all the other drivers have also been driving for a similar time, but he's just found something special of this Radical SR8. And for that matter, all of you watching, folks, you can also go in there, get iRacing, and this car and this very circuit is one of the free options, so you can go and give it a try as well and see how competitive you are in relation to them.
Yeah, it is. You can join, of course, on the iRacing platform, iRacing.com. And of course, there are some promo codes floating about. So if you do not want to immediately pay the subscription the full amount the first time, you can get something like $5. Well, 3 months for $5 at some of those promo codes. They're not too hard to find. So it gives you a good start here. Meanwhile, congestion out there on track in the early parts of qualifying here. They will be able to, when time expires, complete their qualifying laps. That will not be the case in the actual AMX ESPORTS Championship due to that using the heat racing feature, but these juniors have the luxury of completing their qualifying laps here.
Indeed, yeah, but that shouldn't be exploited too much because Tsukuba is such a small circuit, no lap time over a minute, so that shouldn't be much of a problem. The lap time should be wrapping up very, very quickly, and that's the lovely thing. It's intense. The corners shoot right at you. There's no moment of real peace and calm. like where you can get a sip of water. Maybe this one, but it's only about 5 odd seconds, and then bam, straight into another long right-hander. It's a hard circuit, this one, Conray, and the racing is going to be just as intense.
Yeah, so that's the end of the session. Yunho Park was not able to complete his lap, so he was down on towards pit lane. Same with Sung-Young Kang as well. So he decided to abandon the lap. Is Junho Zhang, excuse me, on a lap here, or is he finished with his session? I think he'll be able to complete this lap here, but yeah, it looks like we might just have our grid set here. Junho Zhang continuing to try and drive the wheels off of that radical, trying to get towards the end of the lap, but time will be expiring here in just a couple of moments' time in terms of the cool down part of this one. So there we go. We've got ourselves the starting grid then for what is going to be the first ever AMX Esports Junior Cup event. Drivers making their way down on towards pit lane. Let's take a look then at your starting grid for race number 1. Yunho Park starts in pole position with Sung-Young Kang in P number 2. Junho Yang in P3 with Hee-Jung An P4. P5 goes to Kyo-Hoo Lee with Junhui Park in P number 6 there, as Woojin Shin in P7 and Hong Jun Bohm, we'll get ourselves in P8. Hong Seo Jang and Seo Kun Nam bring things down to P number 9 and 10 respectively. And of course, Sumo, you have the rest of them.
Indeed, we've got Woo Jae Sung, then we've got Sung Suk Choi rounding off the 6th row of the grid. And moving on, Jin Wook Choi in P13 with Kim Ming Hil in P number 14. Then again, Jung Yun Choi in P15 with Yeon Woo Na in 16th, and then Hye Song Na starting in P number 17. It's going to be quite the uphill challenge for him, Connery, but I'm sure the racing will be fun.
Yep, I'm sure it will be. As we get ourselves all set then, that's our starting grid for this event, and we'll get ourselves the view inside the simulator as well as they all start to line themselves up on that starting grid there. We'll have a standing start here for this one, the time ticking down away. We'll get ourselves the first round of the AMX Esports Junior Cup underway here in just a couple of moments. It was a long hold in the starting grid. Whoa, someone's gone very slow off the starting grid. It's a big old scrap at the very front of the field. Yunho Park's gone away well from pole position, but it's Yunho Chang and Hee-Jung An going side by side through the first couple of corners here, and it looks like Hee-Jung An still trying to fight with him, still trying to fight. And oh my god, big incident coming into the middle sector with a couple of your front runners finding the barrier.
This is absolutely terrible if you're someone like Sung-Young Kang. He was in second place, dueling for that heavy position, and now he's all the way down the grid. But if you're someone like Yunho Parks, it's the best day ever. All your major rivals are knocked out.
Yeah, here's the start. You can just see how good of a start that pole position sitter got. It was all a big scrap for P2 and back, though. Between Hee-Jung An and of course Sung-Young Kang as well. There was a bit of 2x2 behind them as well as they headed their way into the hairpin, and there was a little bit too deep there from that driver on the inside. Hee-Jung An just went committed a little bit too much to the hairpin, and unfortunately a little bit of contact there. There they are as they rejoin the circuit. You got to be careful with the rejoins here, otherwise the stewards will penalise you for a bad rejoin. But you can see deep down the inside there. And actually, I don't think that was Hee-Jung An's fault, actually. That was Sung-Young Kang just committing too much and taking out a couple of drivers.
Yeah, exactly. So Sung-Young Kang was all right at the top, but then just losing in his braking. So that's what happens when you brake a bit too hard. The brake bars of the car can mess things up, and you can go careering towards the right-hand side, which is exactly what happened right there. Such a hard thing to do braking with this car. Remember, no ABS as well, and when you're heading into that corner, you must be committed, but not so much that you go 100% on the brakes, because then if you do that too quickly, poof, that result is on your screen. Crazy.
Yeah, here's the closest battle out there on circuit at the moment. We'll pull that up on the right-hand side. This is the battle for 4th place there out on circuit. So that is it's Hongseo Jang, and of course the driver of Juni Park there. As the gap between them starting to extend a little bit. These gaps are fluctuating quite a bit, I would say, but they still remain around about a second between each other in that battle for 4th place. All the other battles have kind of spread themselves out a little bit, although I am spotting potentially things might be getting close for P7 there in just a couple of moments, and of course down the order in P13 as well.
Indeed, yeah, for P number 7, it's going to be quite intense. Im Tae-hyun has to defend, in this case, Sung Suk Choi, and that's going to be quite fun. So I can only imagine the dynamic of overtaking over here, because at certain corners you have to be really, really close to pressurize your opponent, but if you be a bit too close, well, you might just end up having that dirty air, and for many cars, Connery, they've got aerodynamic damage on them, so how are they going to handle stuff?
Woo Jae Sung-soo, is having some major problems trying to bring that car down on towards pit lane. We'll try and get the replay up here to see exactly what has happened here to the driver of the number 24, because they were coming down pit lane and they just tagged the grass on the outside there on the driver's left-hand side, and unfortunately spin the car into a little bit of an awkward situation. You can see him, he's trying to keep himself, and then that might be a unsafe pit entry there due to crossing the line. So that one's unfortunate. We'll get to see the onboard here, just to see exactly what the view was from not so much the driver's seat, but the TV cam. Again, it is a tricky pit entry here, Sumo, with grass on both sides, and it's a very, very narrow for these cars as well, but it is an understandable incident in the end, I feel.
It is, yeah. It's much like Budapest, Hungary, that pit lane entry where you're turning in while you're in there. And it's a racing driver thing, right? You don't want to go slowly. You don't want to slow your car down. But you have to have that pit entry because it is so tight. And sometimes when you're going in a bit too fast, you can get your wheel on the grass. And when you get a wheel on the grass, it's like putting your wheel on ice. Now imagine walking on ice with your flip-flops. That's not going to work well. That's exactly the same thing when you put those tires on there. The Michelin's might be super grippy, but on grass, you can't do anything, sadly.
Yeah, we just we're still having a look at this battle for P4, which slowly but steadily is starting to close up between the two of them here. As Yoonji Park, he's sort of in that awkward spot where he's about a second behind Hong Seo Jang here, but he's not really making all that much progress forwards. He's having a couple of technical problems there, which is why our view went a little bit haphazard here, and I hope that Yoonji Park is able to come back to the land of the living, because it looks like, due to those technical problems, he might be out of the race.
And that's so unfortunate. Now, in the world of sim racing, we may not have things like engine blowouts. Well, we do if we expose the engine a bit too much, but things like suspension failures or perhaps a transmission going out here and there. Instead, our technical issues are more on the internet side, and that right there could be one major example of just that. Just because it's virtual, just because the cars are not physically real, doesn't mean that technical errors cannot happen. Just right here, Connery, we've got to see our first one in the first round itself. And how unfortunate must that feel for the driver when the incident is just not in your control, but it still hampers your points?
I mean, we did have a large amount of drivers get caught up in that lap 1 incident, didn't we? Because it is such a narrow track there, such a narrow piece of circuit there, where if there's going to be an incident, then there's not really that much chance for a driver behind to really get themselves through that unscathed. It's such a difficult situation to be in there, and it requires a little bit of patience. But even then, even if you are patient, sometimes things just don't go your way and your luck runs out.
Yeah, it's a lot like any online race at times, where you really have to trust the other drivers, but sometimes errors do happen. You can only imagine, right, the excitement and just the fear of heading into a big race like this one where everyone's watching. You might see nerves coming up at times, and those nerves can cause incidents like the one that you saw. And as the driver doing nothing, taking your corner very slowly on the first lap, may not even be your fault, but you can get caught up. It's only racing, it's only life. All you can do in this case is put your head down and make sure that you get the best out of this one. Even though you might have a damaged car, totally alright. Extract the pace, because this radical can really let you do that. It rewards good driving, and that sort of stuff can happen for someone like Yoon-Ho Park, who's really been all clean since the very beginning. Got that lovely jump, distanced himself away from the midfield corner. That was the important part of the start.
Yeah, it really, really was, and well, we'll be talking about that start a lot in the future, maybe even between the races, because that has taken out, I would say, about half the field. I will say half the field's kind of had a lot of issues here early on. Here's your race leader that we've been watching for the past while, Yoon-Ho Park. Doing very, very well out there and setting some very competitive lap times indeed. He's pulling about a couple of tenths of a second out each lap over Woo-Jin Shin. And if he's able to do that for the rest of the race, he's in a very, very good spot indeed. Even if he makes a little mistake, he still won't lose enough time to lose the position.
Exactly, and he's reminding me a lot about how Lewis Hamilton normally dominates a Formula One race. Very composed, no pressure at all. No care of what the other drivers are doing, because, I mean, he will have a care later on, but at this stage, his focus is the next corner. Not even his tyres, because in a 20-minute sprint race, your tyres will be totally okay. No need to call Bono for that, but he's all right. He's just doing what he should be. Perfect driving.
Yeah, brilliant stuff indeed from the driver at number 10, continuing to pull that gap. I'm just trying to see if any of these gaps are getting closer down the field. I am seeing maybe just a battle developing for P7 here between Tae-Hyun Kim and Young-Hyun Choi. Look at them, they're getting so close now, just a couple of tenths of a second between them, so Young-Hyun Choi has really driven the wheels off of that thing, and there's a little bit of damage here for Kim Tae-Hyun as well, as down the inside goes Young-Hyun Choi. Is there a cutback available though for the driver of the 16? No, there isn't, and maybe that damage is a little bit more affecting the driving of the car than we first thought.
Exactly. Kim Tae-hyun might not be able to put up a fight back as intense as he hoped to, because his car simply is not able to respond. You can see both of them being a lot damaged, but no, there's an error and they make contact again.
Young-Hyun Choi going a little bit too hot into that hairpin, and well, another little bit of contact. So I would say now all is fair in Love and War, because they're both damaged now, and they both probably feeling the effects of that. A little bit squirrely on the brakes in towards the right-hander, but Tae-Hyun Kim currently in front of Young-Hyun Choi here, and they might even continue this battle. As you can see, Choi just sitting inside the slipstream, and there's the driver of Kim Tae-Hyun bringing bits down on towards the pit lane. I wouldn't be surprised if that's penalty related. Down on towards pit lane. You've got to be careful with the pit lane speed limit here, otherwise you're going to get yourself an additional penalty.
Yeah, exactly. As we mentioned, drivers can get a bit too intense at times during the pit entry. They don't want to lose too much time, but Tsukuba is one pit lane where pit entries and pit exit, which is something that we might see in the big championship as well. They might end up costing you quite a lot of time. Now, we're not going to race at Tsukuba later on, but still, pit entries are going to be so critical, because so much time can be won or lost just there. I mean, imagine, if you make a slight braking and heading into the pit lane, you might lose 7/10 of a second that are going to be so hard to gain on the track. So even your pit entries and your pit exits are mighty critical to getting a big win over here. But looking back at that accident for Connery, how crazy is it? How many times have we seen number 16 and number 33 in the world of motorsport making contact over a big position?
I wonder what you could be talking about. But yeah, it's funny coincidence. Oh, someone going off ahead of Woo-Jin Shin there. Didn't quite see who that was. It was Jung-Hyun Choi. After coming out of the pit lane, what was his stop time? It was a drive-through penalty, I believe. Actually, the stop time isn't showing up properly for me at the moment. But after coming off the pit lane there, Young-Hyun Choi has had a slide, and I think Woo-Jin Shin just had another slide ahead of him.
Goodness me, they're battling incredibly hard when they shouldn't be. This should not be a battle at all. Shin Woo-Jin should be able to go past Haley as he does right now, but facing troubles with the car, the grip level is just super low here because the track temperatures is nearly 40 degrees Celsius. Those tires might be screaming. Yeah,
it is a very, very hot track temp here today, and it is reduced grip out there, I'll say, as as those tyres overheat, you can overdrive them, and if you start sliding, then you're going to be sliding even more, because that's when the tyres overheat don't give you enough grip. So you get yourself caught into sort of a weird little cycle or a vicious cycle of, well, if you overheat the tyres, well, that's going to cause you to overheat the tyres even more and even more and even more, and it becomes a big problem.
Exactly, and only the best of drivers are able to keep it smooth. And with the Radical SR8, a lot of it is down to your throttle control. Now, this car is a bit tail happy, let's put it that way. If you don't control the throttle properly, the rear end will just go away. It will snap, it won't come back. Don't even bother, it's going away quite simply. But if you're very smooth in your throttle, if you are very smooth in the way your right foot functions, only then can you actually master this car and make sure that the tires, firstly, are in the perfect temperature, and secondly, you've got enough grip when you exit a particular corner and you're able to get the best possible lap time. Otherwise, you're going to be doing Tokyo drifting, and that's not a bad thing, particularly if you're in a style contest. But this one is all about the speed.
Yeah, we're in South Korea, not Japan, is what I'll say to that one. But yeah, I mean, there are some drifting competitions, believe it or not, in some racing games. There's some drifting leagues where they actually do have like a proper scoring system and such. So that is available to the drivers if they want to compete, but not in this one. This is more of a serious race, and just trying to beat each other out there on circuit. Right now, the gaps, even though they're looking close out there on circuit, at least, it's mostly between sort of lap down cars and such, so it's not really all that close in reality. So everything will just kind of be a little bit of a just sort of get to the end situation here for a lot of the drivers, especially if you've had a couple of problems already with keeping yourself on track. You just want to get to that checkered flag. You want to keep yourself on the grey stuff, and more importantly, by doing that, you'll be able to come out ahead of drivers that have further problems.
That's very right, and I can only imagine what it's going to be like for Yoon-Ho Park, because in some time he might also end up finding a few lapped cars, and considering the way the lap cars were going about, considering how tricky it has been for them, lapping them could be quite hard. And Yoon-Ho Park, man, he's sliding the car, but keeping it clean most importantly. In fact, if we had style pods, I think he would get a few of them as well, Conrad.
Yeah, I think so too, but he's doing a very, very good job. Even though these cars can be very nervous, no matter what you do to them, it takes a pretty good driver to try and keep them together. And Yoon-Ho Park is doing a very, very good job of that at the moment. You can see the sector times on the bottom left. Of course, the being as short, we're only getting like 12-second sectors and things like that. But through the final corner now for Yoon-Ho Park. 5 minutes left remaining, so that would be around about 5 laps with the pace still going, if not less, if not more, sorry.
Exactly, yeah. These laps here are rapid fire, but look at how Yoon-Ho Park's on the onboard. He was just committing to each corner, turning in so crazily. That's the beauty of the SR8. There's no extra bulky weight. And for the junior drivers, it's going to be such a lesson. Many people call it a glorified go-kart, and that is what it could be. It teaches you the basics of driving, the basics of car racing extremely well. If you learn this, if you can master this car, any big GT tourer that we might see in the bigger championship might be a slightly easier deal to drive. To master is a different thing altogether, but you know exactly how to go about the basics, the fundamentals of racing with a car like that one. It really helps out a lot for them.
We're watching Seok-Hyun Nam out there at the moment. He, at least is showing on my screen to, at least over the last couple of laps, be making some progress in terms of catching P2 Woojin Shin. But it's sort of fluctuating in and out, just sort of remaining around about that 3 seconds now. And that's a lot of time to make up when you know you only have about, well, just less than 4 minutes left in the event. So it's going to require a lot of work and maybe a little bit of help from Woojin Shin having a couple of problems here for Seok-Hyun Nam, excuse me. So yeah, he just continued to lose a little bit of time there through the first sector, about 0.3 of a second. So I was optimistic about that battle becoming a little bit closer before the end, but I don't think it's going to happen unless there's some problem with the drivers in number 7.
Yeah, unfortunately not. But we might, I hope that we're saving up all the big battles for the big racing to come right now.
Yeah.
For them, it may be just a case of trying to get through the first race, maybe just understand what this car and what this track is all about, get a hang, get a grips of the Junior Championship, and maybe by the second round, then you go for a full attack. I know the crash certainly did not help out with that, but it's just part and parcel of motorsport. They've got to deal with it. There's one man who's dealing with it extremely well. No, seriously, we've spoken about him a lot so far of this race as well, Conley, but you just got to give it to him. When everyone, all of his fellow compatriots are going out there crashing, making errors, I can't remember him making even one of them.
Yeah, it is pretty crazy how consistent he has been. I'm not seeing a little bit of damage whatsoever on that Radical SRA. You can see he is still slightly nervous on the entries to the corners, but he's just able to hold on to it well, which is really good going. Same could not be said for a lot of the drivers out there today. Just about 2 minutes left remaining. The closest battle technically on circuit, even though they're laps down here. Actually, not even laps down. Again, it is still that battle for P2 that's technically the closest at the moment. You can pull that up on the right-hand side, but it's about 4.4 seconds now between Woo Jin and Seokhyun Nam. So it's just continuing to extend and not going the way of the driver of the number 8. So it seems like this will be the order for the finish of the race now, pending any post-race penalties. Just a handful of laps remaining then, as we'll see Woo Jin deal with a little bit of lap traffic. Can get a little bit sketchy here, and you can see drivers just kind of getting out of the way, making sure that they're not a problem, because of course we do have a minimum racing speed rule here in effect. So if you're not able to go a certain amount of your leaders' lap times, then you'll be asked to come down on towards pit lane until you get the damage fixed.
And it only helps out driving around with a damaged car. It might be hard for you, but it can be quite hard for the other drivers as well. It might block their vision off if you've got something like smoke coming off the back of your car. Maybe even if you're losing control because of a lack of aerodynamical downforce on your car. It can really not help out if you're someone lapping them off. If you're someone like Hyun Ho Park, if you're coming across a lap car, maybe that's got a damaged wing, they're not able to control the car, it could be harmful for them, could compromise the race of the leaders, and that sort of stuff really is not appreciated. So race control promptly will be taking action on that.
Yeah, we'll get the news of that maybe after the event. Oh, careful, Hyun Ho Park. That's a bit of a slide. Maybe he wants to show off a little bit on this final lap here. So we've got 5 seconds left remaining. Hyun Ho Park, what a dominant performance it has been as he enters into the final couple of corners. The lap traffic ahead will not be a problem as Hyun Ho Park comes across the line to win the first ever round of the AMX Esports Junior Cup here at Tsukuba in the Radical SR8. Fantastic performance from the driver of the number 10 to take maximum points here today. Sets himself up pretty well for the championship with a performance like that. So dominant, but of course helped a little bit by the lap 1 incident.
Indeed, yeah, but for Hyun Ho Park, clean as a whistle. When everyone has been faltering, he has been superb. You've got to appreciate the consistency and well-deserved first win of the AMX Junior Championship. Now, I can only wonder what's going to happen at the next round, Connery, because there'll be so many drivers bubbling up with excitement, willing to show us exactly what they're made of, because they might have not had the chance to do so here today.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're one of those drivers at the very back of the field that got caught up in that lap 1 incident, you're thinking, well, this race is kind of a write-off. I need to get myself in gear now for that second, third, fourth event to get my championship back on track. But let's have a look then at your race results then. These are the unofficial race results, remember, because we might have post-race penalties applied here in the future. So we'll take these as they are for now. Hyun Ho Park, how about that? 11.5 seconds ahead of Woo Jin Shin, and then Seokhyun Nam there in P3. Hong Seo Jang in P4, and then of course you got those drivers towards the bottom end of the top 10, or the bottom half of the top 10. Of course, you've got a couple of drivers in there that were involved in that early instance, and they were able to recover at least a little bit by being 11 laps down.
Yep, absolutely. Race of attrition, this one took its toll on so many drivers. You can see the second half of the field right now on your screen. Kim Tae-hoon showed a bit of excitement in the middle, just having those incidents that eventually ruled him out as well. So, Woo Jae-sung in P12, Kim Bing-hyul in P13, Yoon Moon-na in P14, Junwee Park eventually coming up in P15. I wanted to see more of him. Sadly, could not see much. Song Yong-kang in P16, and the rest behind.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the situation there. That's the end of round number 1 of the AMX Junior Cup. But don't go away, because we'll be having, in a couple of moments' time, the opportunity to see the professional sim drivers, the older sim racers, take their get their chance out there on circuits to show us what they're made of. They'll be running in the BMW M8 GTEs for this event. Fixed setup, just like in these Radical SR8s, but they will be running at Suzuka instead of Tsukuba.
Ah, that's right. Similar sounding names right here, also in Japan, but the flow of Suzuka is just something else. And seeing it in the GTE car like the BMW M8, it's going to be a lot of fun. The M8, by the way, it's mostly front engine, so the car may not turn in as well as the Radical SR8, but the kind of power and the surge of consistent power that it has on the straights can make it quite a fun watch. And I can only wonder, Connery, are we going to get someone going side by side at 130R?
Possibly. I mean, it does require the good run out of Spoon Curve and a little bit of the help of the draft on the way in towards that very fast left-hander, but I don't see a reason why not. As long as the pro drivers, or rather the sim drivers, can keep themselves on track a little bit better on the first lap, then maybe, just maybe, we'll get to see a lot more interesting battles. And I would love to see these guys go absolutely wheel to wheel. They did do so in the test event that we had, so I wouldn't be surprised if we get ourselves another little great battle, or at least a couple of great battles in the main racing that's yet to come.
And with those GTE cars, you can kind of expect it as well. They are cars that promote good racing. We've seen it time and time again in IMSA in the real world, on the iRacing special events on the iRacing service, that GTE cars, they can fight. And they can fight really hard. They can take a few blows here and there as well. So even if you make contact, you're totally okay. As long as it's not permanent big contact. But when you're touching side by side, that's totally all right. And something tells me there is going to be a lot of that today.
Yeah, I get that feeling as well. So we will sort of, and eventually we will leave this Junior Cup aside for a couple of moments. We will get ourselves over to the actual AMX Esports Championship. That's the format that we went over just a little bit earlier on with those, with the sim drivers, with the influencers, with the real-life drivers all taking part in this one. It should be an absolutely fantastic event. If the test event is anything to go by, it'll be absolutely crazy, with people going for very big moves and and a lot of side-by-side action. But this is where the stakes are a little bit higher, because now that there are actually points on the line, there's prize money on the line. Remember, the prize pool for the AMX Esports Championship is a total of 1 Bitcoin. So, you know, that's the prize pool at the end. Of course, the winner doesn't get that single Bitcoin; they get a fraction of it. But yeah, that's around about, at least at current prices. I haven't checked today, but it was around about $20,000, if I remember correctly.
Yep, it's big money. Yeah. Big money for Bitcoins, and 0.4 Bitcoins for the winning team. And at this stage, the teams and drivers not just fighting for themselves, the sim racing drivers, like in the Junior Cup. They're going to be fighting for pride, they're going to be fighting for points, they're going to be fighting for prize money, and eventually for the entire team, because later on, the real world drivers and the influencers will also be watching them race, watching them do their own thing.
Yep, they will. And, they'll also might be in those team channels as well, just maybe giving some words of encouragement, just trying to give some advice, especially from those real-life drivers, just trying to coach the sim drivers a little bit. And, of course, it'll be the opposite way around when the real-life drivers get in the car in a couple of weeks' time, because they might not be used to the sim.
Exactly, it's going to be a big learning. Now, how many times have we seen real-world racing drivers come to the iRacing service? Some of them are able to really catch on very well, but we've seen so many real-world pros struggle as well with the service, with the dynamics. It might just be driving a race car, but adapting to not having those G-forces while driving can be quite a challenge for people who've done it for all their lives. So for the real-world racing drivers as well, they may know the fundamentals of it, but just adapting to the sim-specific stuff is going to be quite a challenge, but they should be helped out by the fact that the M8 is an easy car to drive, but a very, very hard one to master.
Yes, it is. It's a little bit different from the GT3 car that we'll also see over the course of this season. It does not have any ABS, for example. So you have to be a little bit more careful on the brakes there, not to lock them up. And of course, locking up overheats them. And then, of course, you get the tire wear issues and things like that as well. So you do have to be very, very careful not to overcommit on the brakes in these cars. Of course, once we get to the M4 GT3, which we'll be using later on in the season, then maybe you might see more bold moves down the inside, because you know that if you've got your ABS setting up high enough, that you're not going to lock a brake.
Exactly, but I can only imagine how challenging the transition must be. I know real-world professional sim drivers have had a bit of a challenge adapting from the switch from a GTE to a GT3, because the braking in both these cars, it's quite hard. Now, they may look similar at times, but when you get on the brakes for the GTEs, it's a lot more challenging. There's a lot more things that you have to keep in mind. And so for the drivers going from here to there, oh, it's going to be hard.
That's a little bit of a reminder of the schedule for the entire championship. Of course, we have this round number 1 with the sim drivers in the BMW M8 GTE at Suzuka. Then next week, we will have the influencers racing in the GT3 at Daytona Oval, which will be a crazy race. I don't know how that one's going to turn out, but it should be a lot of fun. That's the whole point of the influencer races, is to have a decent amount of fun. But then we'll get the real drivers at the Nürburgring GP circuit in those GT3 cars in about 2 weeks' time. So a lot to look forward to here. And Sumil, what would you say would be your most favorite track out of the list of them there?
Ah, that's a hard call. So, Le Mans, obviously, for emotional reasons, but then again, you've got Spa. And imagine GTE racing at Spa. We've seen so much of it in the 6 hours of Spa that we get to see in the real world. I really can't choose between both of them. But even the prospect of Montreal gets me so excited when it comes onto the iRacing service. Ah, no, well, not one that doesn't come on when we get to see it on the calendar, because it's been around for a long time.
Yeah,
The
we'll
excitement
see.
got me.
We will see. As I mean, I'm looking down that list. We have we have Bathurst, which is a very long, technical, very difficult
yes.
circuit. Or especially with that mountain section. But then the week afterwards, with the influencers, we go to Brands Hatch Indy, which, if you're going to pick a road track for inexperienced drivers, that's probably the best one, given it's again so short and relatively simple in terms of the corners. But that's just the difference. You go from Bathurst to Brands Hatch Indy. That's like going from Circuit de la Sarthe to Monaco. It's that different,
Exactly.
even though the exact details may be a bit different.
Exactly. I mean, straight away, it's going to be such a hard challenge. But knowing these drivers, they're in for the test. They're in for the long run. They're in to learn. They're in to improve. And just seeing those stories of the teams and drivers evolving as racing drivers is going to be so fun to check. Because some of these tracks, as you mentioned, Conrad, proper driver challenges. How are they going to fare? In fact, Suzuka, even for the sim drivers, this right here, oh, it's a proper hardcore test.
Yep, it really, really is. And it is a difficult first round to the season, this one at Suzuka. We could have started off at a more simple track, like, for example, Brands Hatch. We could have started at a more simple track. Maybe maybe a little bit of a less technical circuit. Maybe we could have started at Monza, for example. But start at Suzuka, which is a very difficult track to get a hold of at the best of times. But for the first round of the championship, where you're not sure where you stack up in relation to everyone else, that's coming into a big unknown. And some drivers may not deal with that well.
So that's where you see the gulf between a couple of teams and drivers. Some of them are really confident, who've done their practice, who understand, while you might see others that are more tentative. But the good thing is, eventually, they're all going to come together to come up with this amazing sort of competition that we get to see later in the season too. But here, I think it's largely going to be about individual class acts. And that is such a sight to see at Suzuka. A track that invites good driving. It's like it calls you out and says, right, push harder, man. Go for it. Give it a faster lap. And that sort of stuff is so much fun to watch.
Yeah, it is absolutely incredible to sort of witness in these sorts of situations here. It's It is absolutely crazy, but we will just for a moment, we have a couple of words from our sponsors. Of course, you see them all down on the bottom of the screen there. Of course, supported by iRacing, we got Kolon Motors, who are the biggest Korean BMW dealership over there, and of course, we got a multitude of different partners. So thank you very, very much to everyone, and of course, we'll be back in just a couple of moments as we'll have to go, unfortunately, to a commercial break.
미쉐린, 미식의 길을 안내하다. Michelin, motion for life.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the AMX Esports Championship. This time we head to Suzuka for the AMX Esports Championship proper. We've had the Junior Cup already, but now we'll get ourselves the sim drivers out there for this portion of this AMX Esports Championship. Of course, we've got ourselves a good couple of decent names, at least from the Korean esports scene, as far as the esports racing scene is concerned, out here today. And well, let's hope that they can give us a bit of a show that we were perhaps more expecting from the juniors. But of course, we had that lap 1 incident that kind of put a bit of a downer on that one.
Oh, absolutely. Some proper big names taking part in this championship race in the sim driver side. It's going to be fun. These are the guys that have had the most time on the simulator in terms of anyone in this league. So expect some really stunning performances. And what a track to come to for that.
Yeah, the Suzuka International Racing Course is its full name. Of course, you know, played host to so many Japanese Grand Prix over the decades, and is one of the fan favorite circuits in that particular league. But we head here in the MHGTEs this time around. Of course, this track made famous both by that S's section in the first sector of the lap, which is absolutely fantastic in any car you decide to take around there. But of course, you have, towards the end of the lap, that very fast left-hander, one of the most dangerous corners in motorsports, well, in history, but perhaps still is, due to the amount of speed you carry through there, 130R before you hit the brakes into the Casio Triangle to finish off the lap. It is one of my most favorite circuits ever, Sumel, and I'm so happy that we're going to this track for the first round.
Same. It's a track etched in the hearts and minds of millions and millions of motorsport fans over the years. We can literally remember big memories from this circuit etched into our brains. Imagine, right, watching those replays of Senna and Prost having those collisions, watching Kimi Raikkonen storm his way past the grid, watching Fernando Alonso going to the outside of Michael Schumacher right here. Suzuka has been through so many brilliant moments, and in the sim racing world as well. I think it's good to see finally many big leagues in iRacing come to Suzuka, because normally the World Championships don't really come here, but the racing always delivers. I mean, only a couple of days ago, I saw a Porsche 911 GT3 Cup race over here, and they went bonkers. Imagine what could happen with these MA GTEs here today.
Yeah, just imagine. And this opening lap's going to be crazy. We had a particularly interesting one in the test event on Friday, but you know, that could potentially shake up the order here, because you know, sometimes at this circuit you can have the tendency to get trapped behind people, but that is really only in high downforce cars because of the dirty air coming through the first sector. In these M8 GTEs, they are quite powerful machines, and they do have a decent amount of downforce on these GTE machines, but hopefully they can follow a little bit more closely than open wheel cars here, and we can get some good overtaking going, especially both into turn 1 and of course into the hairpin in the middle of the lap and into the Casio triangle at the end.
Yeah, moves into turn 1 are going to be stunning, right? Imagine you bring up all the momentum from the Casio triangle, you come up, and in fact with the M8 GTE you can use a fair bit of draft as well. You have to send it to the outside line. Inside can get a bit too risky. And seeing those moves just makes you go back to feeling like a kid. There's no doubt about it. Be it whatever car, be it whoever is driving, moves around the outside of turn number 1, they can be so special because of the nature of the corner. Fast downhill right-hander. And trust me, you are going to see quite a few of them. Even at the SS corner, following may be quite hard, but just sticking by and forcing the other driver into making a mistake is going to be the tactic that works today. And that sort of driving is hyper entertaining to watch in the long run.
Yeah, it is. It sort of promotes a little bit more of a thinking person's race. I know that's a bit of a cliche on commentary, but there's so much more to racing than trying to get alongside another driver and trying to overtake them. It's all about the mind games. It's all about applying the pressure, just making yourself look big in their mirrors, just like go for a move that you know you're not going to go for, but just sort of show the nose just to make sure, yeah, I'm still here in the threat, and all of a sudden I might dive down your inside at any point.
And with the M8, you can't get any bigger in the mirror than any other car for that matter. So it's going to be fun. You can see those sort of mind games coming on here. And seriously, that is the sort of stuff we like. Drivers going against each other. It's the first round, so everyone wants to go out there and put a big first impression. I can't wait.
Yeah, I can't wait either. We've still got around about 9 minutes of practice left, so we can, show the cars out there on circuit here in just a couple of moments here, just to see what the situation is out there as far as the practice times are concerned. You can see we've got the 8 minutes and 30 seconds left of practice here, and we can pull up the times on the left-hand side of the screen there in just a couple of moments, but. Yeah, this is going to be, another opportunity for these drivers to get themselves their sights set in, because remember, they might not have been practicing in these exact same conditions here. So it might be a bit of a change from what they're used to. Let's pull up the weather, in fact. Let's see what the conditions exactly are. So actually, it's a little bit cooler than what we saw in the Junior Cup race at Tsukuba. It's a couple of degrees cooler in Celsius on the track temperature, which will help a good amount with the grip levels out there.
Yep, it should help out quite a fair bit. Now, Suzuka, very much grip dependent, even though the M8 might be a big bulky machine. When the track temperatures are too high, nothing you can do. But it's still sometimes so hard to lose your car, as we do see on screen right now. 39 degrees is a little more convenient than what we had back there at Tsukuba, but it's still going to be a very challenging track just to keep it on track.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very challenging indeed, and well, we'll get ourselves qualifying here in around about 7.5 minutes time as the drivers just get their last little bits of practice in. Oh, that's a big instant there for Joe Hook. For Joe Hook there, as he's got himself. Well, at least it's practice. That's all I'm saying. At least it's if he does that in the race, then yeah, that's not going to be conducive to getting many points. But yeah, as long as you do that here and you get yourself clean for both qualifying and the actual race events, then I don't think anyone can complain.
Exactly, and if you do that in real life with your real life M8, I think Kolon Motors will be quite happy to help you get your car back into the right serviceable condition so that you can go back and take a lap again. And who wouldn't want to take a lap of Suzuka, even though it may be just practice? As I said, it just invites you. It's the Degner corners. You fly in with so much of speed and so much of momentum heading off the S's. That sort of first right hand really catches you out, and it's not like a proper corner. It's slightly angled in, so you can carry more speed into it. It's deceptively quick, and that is the sort of corners that we have here consistently at Suzuka. It's a driver's challenge, but it takes more instinct to drive more than anything else.
Yeah, it really, really does. And well, with 6 minutes practice left, there's the driver of Jun Won Choi. from Redcon Motorsports. Remember, this is technically a team event for these guys, so you do have to remember that they're not only racing for themselves out here today, Sumo, they are also racing for their team, and it's their team that gets the prize at the end of the day, not these individuals.
That is absolutely correct. And so eventually your thoughts might be on the bigger picture. Not so much here, but imagine when we're having a 3-car endurance race later on this season, when the offline events kick about. How do you manage things like that? Now, some drivers might be going very aggressive on the first lap, but what that can do is bring some contact and some damage onto the car, which makes it worse for your teammates to look after later on. So you have to consider these sort of dynamics, these sort of elements as we go deeper into the season. For these guys, for the sim racers at this stage, it's just going hard, pushing hard, and seeing what you can make out, not for yourself, but for the entire team, because in the end, it's going to be the entire organization that wins, and the push and the support will be completely there together.
Yeah, so we continue to watch these drivers practice, though. We've got driver of course, there's someone who was in the previous race. That's Yunho Park. So Yunho Park is both a junior driver and, of course, an AMX eSports driver as well. So he's got himself a big task. He's got himself a pretty active day, because not only has he had to practice for the Radicals at Tsukuba, he's also had to practice for this as well.
Exactly, but he's done such a good job with the Radicals, he'll be having that level of confidence. He's just gone in there and absolutely obliterated the field. So he walks in with a certain swagger, with a certain air of confidence surrounding him, that I can do that in the junior category. Why can't I do this here? It may be a completely different beast altogether, but for him, it's going to be quite a hectic day. A fun one when it ends. Hopefully for him, at least he can get back home with 2 winners' trophies.
Yeah, and for Yunho Park at the moment, he is top of the order in terms of practice times at the moment. So that's the situation. Of course, we'll get those timings to you in a moment on the left-hand side. There's a small technical issue that we need to resolve before we can show you that. But it seems like Yunho Park is the man to beat at the moment, and everyone else kind of languishing behind about. Well, his closest competitor is about 0.3 of a second behind. Everyone else is more than half a second.
Exactly. And Yunho Park, man, what has he had for breakfast or lunch today? Because he seems to be flying in every car that he put him in, even though it's a complete change of philosophy. Radical has its engine a bit more towards the back, BMW on the front, BMW more front heavy, Radical very easy to turn in. To give that to Yunho Park, he'll say, well, corporate asks you to differentiate between these 2 pictures, and he says it's the same picture. For him, it does not matter whatever car you give him. He will ace through it.
Yeah, that's sometimes how that works, and it's sometimes I'm just quite jealous of drivers like that, because it just shows me that, well, I can't go fast in 1 car, and these guys can go fast in 2 cars at 2 different tracks on the same day, and I just feel bad about it.
Same. You've just got to appreciate their greatness, though, the way they drive, but he's taking the hard route here. Not the scenic one, let's put it that way.
Yeah, that's the driver of Chi Young Park for DCT Racing, having a problem there, all things considered. So, yeah, we have... we're still waiting for this practice to end, of course, and it's sort of setting itself up now, because we usually don't like to read too much into practice times, because there might be many different elements of why drivers are fast or slow, and some might be sandbagging and things like that, and then will surprise us in qualifying. But if you're one of those other drivers, you're very worried at the moment, aren't you, about Yunho Park's pace?
I mean, they all must have just watched the junior race right now, and they might be saying, this guy seems nice. Let's just see what he does in our race. Straight up, Yunho Parks comes in with only, a couple of minutes worth of a break, has a sip of water, comes back in, and he is rocking the field with purple lap after purple lap. If that doesn't raise a few eyebrows, I don't know what will. But he's got some close competition behind too, because right down there in that battle for P3, we've got Park Shi-hyung and Jae-hook Coach just so close to each other. Literally 0.005 of a second. And when these guys work together in the race, when they use the draft to come up to someone like Yunho Park, it is going to be a fun fight.
Yeah, it's if we get an absolutely fantastic battle for the race lead that I am hoping for, if Jae-hee Han can hold on, and obviously this depends on the actual qualifying times here, since we don't actually have the grid set at the moment. But if someone can challenge Jin Ho Park for the race lead in this race, that would be an absolutely fantastic spectacle. And I can't see any better way of sort of putting the cherry on top of the cake that has been this first event than something like that.
Exactly, and imagine the story of it. A double winner. Now I know we're speculating quite a fair bit, but this next session, the 10 minutes of qualifying, are going to give us a good idea about what to expect. And just dialing in the car during qualifying is some challenge. More to speak about that later on.
Yeah, we're continuing to watch Chi Young Park here. Continue to work his way around in the DCT racing car. I gotta say though, I kind of find it humorous that is a BMW, but it has a Ferrari driver sort of branding on the side there. But we'll get ourselves switched on over into the qualifying session then. So qualifying has now started. You can see all those drivers trying to find themselves some space coming off of the pit lane, and you know, time is of the essence when it comes to qualifying here.
It is indeed, and the interesting part is it is an open qualifying, so everyone will be striving for some major draft back up after the spoon corner. So that's a bit of a flipped coin. It's more of a two-edged sword, this one, because here you might be close to somebody in the straights. You get a lot of downforce, a lot of drafting, I beg your pardon, a lot of slipstream that can give you a massive straight line advantage. But the moment you come to a corner, this will mean error wash. This will mean dirty air. This will mean lost time. And for the M8, which is a car very sensitive to aerodynamics, that could be a major problem. So as a driver in qualifying, how close do you stay to someone up ahead of you, or how far back do you fall down? Because this really could be determining where you start in the race. And when you've got so many top drivers in the grid, you certainly want to be starting out as high as possible, because your job otherwise would be super, super hard.
Yeah, especially in a field like this, where yes, the front couple of drivers are walking away with it in terms of lap times, at least in practice. Everyone else, kind of in the mid-pack, was around about the same piece of real estate. So we might see a very competitive mid-pack here. At least that's what I hope, as we see Hee-Sung Lee in the NJC car. Oh, yeah, that's a rear lock there coming into the hairpin section. Easily done. Just hasn't got his brake wire set quite right. Even though these are fixed setups, you can fiddle around with the brake wire, so try and get it in the right place.
Exactly. Braking here with the GDE is a bit so hard now. It's a common misconception that you can go 100% on the brakes. Not so much on the GTEs. If you do that with too much intensity, something similar might happen.
Speaking of something similar happen, I think Hee-Sung Lee has done that again. So not exactly the most ideal outlap here, but remember, these are outlaps. These are warm-up laps. So these are the drivers just sort of getting themselves ready and prepared, making sure the tires are up to the correct temperature, making sure they're up to the correct pressure as well, and then they'll be able to go chasing for the lap time. But across the line they come then to start their flying laps. So this is where things start to get, well, we get a better idea of how things will turn out.
Indeed, yeah, this is going to be the big one. And imagine if you're one of those drivers, imagine the nerves, imagine knowing that a big percentage of the motorsport crowd in Korea, plus lots of new fans, might be watching you in your qualifying runs. I've heard lots of racing drivers get their heart rate getting to an incredibly high level. But that's where the fun part is, right? That sort of adrenaline is why we love motorsport so much.
Yeah, it really, really is, as we get some of the scenic shots here of just the circuit. It is an absolutely brilliant circuit here, Suzuka. Like I said, it is one of my most favorite tracks in the universe here, and it's a great host here for the very first round of competition in this, the AMX Esports Championship. But let's get those cars back on the screen, and let's see how qualifying is going for the moment for these drivers, because sometimes it can be a a bit of a struggle in qualifying, especially if you don't get the early banker lap. Like I say, it's if you make an error on your first couple of laps, that puts you at a bit of an awkward spot for the very end of the session, because you're always going to try and push a little bit harder, try and get that time in, because you don't have enough time then to just sort of go at a bit of a relaxed pace and set a banker lap, because otherwise the end of the session will come to you very quickly.
That's right, that's very, very true. And even in this one, because when you can't qualify over the 10-minute mark, you can't finish your lap, that time pressure will be even further increased by something like that. So you got to hold it in. You cannot make that big mistake, because then the tide can turn against you. So many sportsmen have spoken so extensively about how critical momentum is in the world of sports, and even in the world of esports as well. The moment it starts swinging away from you, getting it back on your side can be quite hard. And having spins, having crashes, heading out in the grass is something that can turn the momentum, albeit in the wrong way.
Yep, we've got the drivers on the left-hand side now. Sorry about those slight technical issues a little bit earlier on, but we've got ourselves the times up on the board. That's what we absolutely love to see. And right now, it's Jae-Hyuk Lim at the very front of the field. So is a little bit of a disparity compared to what he was named in Sim, compared to what he was named on our overlays. But it is Jae-Hyuk Lim at the very front of the field at the moment, with Young-Min Lee in that second place, about 5/10 of a second back. If you're wondering where Yunho Park is, well, he has not set a qualifying time just yet. There he is, and well, he's continuing to try and work on these bits of lap traffic. I think he abandoned his first opening lap, I believe.
Yeah, I think he has. So that leaves out even less time for him. A lap around Suzuka, ideally around 2 minutes. But basically, he can just get 2 more laps in. And imagine the pressure for a lap like that one. Ooh, it's going to be big. It's going to be hard. And you can already see those slides coming in at the exit of the Casio Triangle.
Coming up across the line, is this a valid lap for Yunho Park, or is it going to be a begging? It's not. Oh, there we go. It just about comes through, but it's not as fast as what we were expecting it to be. So maybe it's just a lap to get his sights set before he can go chasing a little bit later on, because he's about 2 seconds behind your provisional pole position sitter at the moment. But I would expect that sort of this lap would be his fastest lap due to the amount of times he slid on that opening lap, and of course got caught up behind the traffic as well.
Indeed, yeah, those slides luckily might be helping him just a little bit in terms of building up the temperature. Now, not intentional definitely, but when he slides off the tyres under greater pressure, because you don't have to hold them off for one long stint, you can do a little bit of that, get the right temperature in the tyres, and bam, attack the corners like he is. Seems to be a highly committed lap right here by Yunho Park.
Yeah, highly committed, and well, he's going to have to work his way up in towards the hairpin now. Make sure he doesn't have that same rear locking issues as to what we saw with the driver earlier on. Make sure you get yourself dive through, get the apex track out as well. You have to be absolutely pitch perfect. The track limits here, at least defined by the stewards, are including all white lines and of course the curbs as well. But of course, iRacing may or may not agree with that in terms of a qualifying lap. So you do have to play to the strengths, play to the iRacing system more here and just try and find the track limits that way. But Yunho Park is doing a very good job at the moment here in the behind the wheel of that BMW M8. But he needs a competitive lap time now, otherwise it's perhaps not going to quite work out for him.
Indeed, it will not if it continues on that way. But he seems to be doing okay. In the first apex, then the second one. Hard to navigate the car past those tricky, swift corners. But across the line, he's going to come now, Conry. Where does he go?
It's a 1:55.5. Oh, it's pole position is what it is. It's pole position by a long margin there for Yunho Park. That is a statement and a half from the driver that won the Junior Cup race a little bit earlier on. So is there anyone else out there that can really compete with him? That's the question. If you ask me, I don't really think so, but we'll just have to watch this one run through and see exactly what the situation is.
Exactly, it's only just qualifying, and some drivers, many of them are better in terms of race pace. Many of them can hold it together for 30 odd minutes, they can gain the momentum in the long run. Some may have that raw pace, but it's the long run when it really counts out. But mind you, making moves here at Suzuka, quite a challenge. So it always helps out, always a bonus to do something big here. I'm only wondering, can Jae-Hyuk Lim come out with something special and close up that gap, or maybe even put it on pole?
Yeah, maybe, just maybe, we'll ride on board with him. Let's ride on his roof instead of showing you inside the cockpit there. So Jae-Hyuk Lim, his best time so far is a 1:56.093. He has to beat a 1:55.528. So it's a big ask. Let me tell you that. It's a big ask to go half a second faster. Remember, also in this qualifying session, you have to, when the clock expires, that is it. That is it, done in terms of your qualifying. You don't get the extra time to be able to complete your lap here because we're using the iRacing heat racing system. So that's just the problem that the drivers are having to deal with at the moment. And I think Jae-Hyuk Lim will be able to complete this lap here. I think he should be fine with 10 seconds to go coming out of the final corner. But what's the lap time going to be? A 1:55.5-ish to beat, and it's not good enough for Jae-Hyuk Lim. It's a 1:56.6, so not the lap required to be able to get himself up into the top couple of spots. But there we go. Our grid is now set, Sumil, for the first round of the AMX Esports Championship here at Suzuka. And let's take a look at it now. So Yunho Park there takes pole position with Jae-Hyuk Lim in P2, Chi-Young Park in P3 with Jae-Hee Han in P4, Youngmin Lee and Jun Hui Kim bring things down to P8. So you can see all those team associations there as well. Young-Tak Lee P7 today is Dookie Lee in P8, Mingyu Song in P9, and P10 goes to Seoni Hong there. And we can see the drivers towards the very back of the grid, Jun Won Choi and Hee Jung An in P12, and then those drivers at the very back of the field, Sumil, that have a lot of work to do.
Indeed, they do. Hong Seo-jang starting the race in P number 13 with Jin Han Lee in 14 for Midas Racing. For Team PSR, Han Sung Lee starts in P15 with Yong Jae Lee in P number 16. Then finally, Jae-Hyuk Lee starting in 17 for the PS31 team. They look decent in qualifying, but then not so much coming up later. Finally, Hui Sung Lee in number 19 for Team NJC and Jong Pil Jung in P20.
Yeah, so that's the 20 cars that will be taking part here today in the first round of the AMX Esports Championship. It's been a long time in the making, this series, let me tell you that. There's been a lot of work going on behind the scenes to make sure that we can bring you the coverage that you're about to see and bring you the racing that you're about to witness. Gridding time will be around about 2 minutes here. It's a rolling start here in the AMX Esports Championship. That is in contrast to the standing start we had in the Junior Cup. So it's a more typical start for GTEs here in this situation, since I don't think any of the drivers will want to try and get one of these cars off the starting grid in a standing start. It'll be very, very tricky to do. But yeah, these guys are just about to get rolling. Our 2 minutes of gridding time have now elapsed, so you'll start to see them get themselves set up behind the pace car. And remember, in this series, they will go on the green flag. So once that car pulls down on towards the pit lane, they will have to wait, and then they will go. So unless they've been told something different in the driver's briefings, that's how it is in the rule book coming into this one. So off and away then, Yunho Park is your pole position sitter. He's in that red and black car there at the very front of the field. He will potentially hold the advantage in towards turn number 1 by virtue of being on the inside there of the front row. But a go on green rule doesn't really favor the leader, because usually the leader dictates the start in these sorts of things, but not so here in this series. Pace car will imminently be coming down on towards the pit lane, and then we'll be getting the first round of the AMX Esports Championship underway. They have to hold, they have to wait for that green flag to show, and then we will go racing and roaring down in towards turn number 1. Long hold here before they get the green flag, and now they can fan out. They had to keep to their lanes before the green flag, and now they fan out, trying to find position. Yunho Park going very defensive here towards turn number 1, but it looks like Jae-Hyuk Jae-hyuk around the outside, able to try and get up into P1. He's continuing to fight it out, trying to go around the outside of Young-ho Park here, and I think he's been able to gain the position. What a start from P2.
Wow! Jae-hyuk is just absolutely on it. Going around the outside at turn number 1 gets your heart in your mouth, and that is the sort of racing that we are here to watch. Tremendous start by him, and the number 9 machine already getting the advantage in the first lap.
There's battle for P3 as well going on between Chae-young Park and Jae Han. Jae Han trying to make this move happen. Oh, someone getting squeezed out there as Chae-young on the inside, able to get past Young-min Lee there. I believe it was that he was fighting with. Yet more battling going on behind the scenes. Behind these guys though, as between a good couple of drivers in towards the hairpin. Jae Han, Jin Hui Kim deciding to go side by side here, coming out the hairpin, but despite all the battling here, Sumil, everyone has kept it clean.
Somehow, only a couple of cars out there spinning around at the first corner, but that's traditional, that always happens. The interesting thing is they're so respectful at the top, and it's the 14 car Jun Hui Kim making a mistake at Spoon, and look at how much grip he loses.
Yeah, and now it's Mingyu Song trying to find their way by here. And looks like Mingyu will be able to try and find the inside for 130R. They're fighting ahead, by the way, in towards 130R as well. Surely this is not going to work in the group of 4. They track out wide, but they keep each other together. And my word, this is absolutely crazy racing in the opening lap. Oh, overcommitment into the triangle, but somehow they don't spin around. They make contact, but they keep going.
How do they do something like that? I have no clue how they've kept it clean, but the racing is just spinning over at this stage, and it is incredibly fun to watch. In that midfield, you predicted it extremely well, Connery. At the opening lap, they just switched to another gear, found some level of intensity that I could not even predict.
Yeah, that's crazy, because we had some issues on our test race where they had a big crash on both races coming down in towards turn number 1, but not so this time around. Everyone's kind of learnt from that and have kept it clean, which is brilliant stuff. You can see this is sort of the main battle at the moment going off for P3, which is involving the drivers of, let's bring them up again, Young-min Lee, Young-tak Lee and Jae Han. They're all keeping themselves relatively close together at the moment. The 2 race leaders as well, though, between Jae-hyuk Lim and Young-ho Park, those guys are together. And what a start it was, Sumil, from Jae-hyuk Lim, to be able to drive around the outside through turn 1 and 2 on the race leader on the first lap. That is, well, we've had one corner at that point, and we've already got move of the season.
Exactly. But he's still under pressure right now. Young-ho Park might have lost the edge at the first corner, but he's just not letting go of Jae-hyuk Lim. And the interesting part is, Connery, it was not the best start in terms of a standing start. He had to do it on a rolling start, which means having extremely quick reactions and getting the jump on someone like Young-ho Park, who we have already seen to be such a credible winner. That right there takes something really special, and that is happening on the screen right now as well. Young-ho Park might have lost the edge at the start, but he's got 11 minutes to counter something, and the way he's pressurizing him, that just reminds us of the point that we discussed early on. A race more of the mind. How smart can you be in terms of executing your moves?
Yeah, here we go. You can see the separation, the top 2 class of the field at the moment. Meanwhile, battle for P3 going on between Young-min Lee and Young-tak Lee. Young-min Lee ahead on the inside here, down in towards turn number 1. He's got to be careful not to overcommit and open up the lane on the inside, but he's got that done pretty comfortably there, as Young-tak Lee has to sort of back off of that. He's got to be careful because he's got Jae Han behind him as well. So this group of 3, 4 P3, also looking to do some battle.
And this could be the fun one. They're fighting for the final podium slot right here, and there are quite a few points on offer for finishing in this particular position. So for them, it's going to be so much fun, but you've also got to keep in mind that the bigger feature race, the top 8 will be inverted in that. So for Young-min Lee, he might be keeping off Young-tak Lee and Jae Han right now, but later on in the big race where the bigger points are awarded, my beg your pardon, he has to pass both of them. So it's a short-term victory, and now Jae Han puts his foot between the two and forces one.
Yeah, this is the battle for P4 now. You can see just by going deep down the inside there, Actually, we've had the pass of the race lead happen just away from this one. They're going side by side right now. In fact, here's the race leaders going side by side through Spoon Curve, and it looks like Jae-Hyuk Lim has just about been able to hold on there. I saw that swap around on my timing screen with Yunho Park leading for a couple of moments. You can see Jae-Hyuk just going to the inside for 130R, and now Yunho Park looking to make some progress around the outside. Surely doesn't get any sort of momentum out there. He's going to have to cut back to a different lane coming into the triangle though, and it's all covered off by Jae-Hyuk Lim. These guys are giving us a show.
These guys properly are, and for Jae-Hyuk Lim, it's like he knows exactly what move Yunho Park is going to make. He goes right there, blocks off the line, and you can see it. He's not avoiding the slipstream because he knows that when he comes to the corner, he might be able to block off the apex quite well. Does he do that?
Yeah, he's got it all covered. Jae-Hyuk Lim is holding on at the moment. You can just see how close Yunho Park is getting though to his rear bumper. He's just applying all of the pressure at the moment, but Jae-Hyuk is just he's just dealing with it. It's brilliant stuff. We'll go back and try and catch a replay though of this one as they continue to be very close indeed. But I wanted to go all the way back and see kind of what sparked all of this happening. It was it was a big slide there. So this is the situation coming into Spoon Curve here in just a couple of moments' time. And actually, I think there might be a problem on the live pictures for Yunho Park. We'll get to that in just a moment because I think Yunho Park has crashed. But let's have a look at the move into Spoon Curve. Oh, Yunho Park had that done, but he overcommitted too much in towards the Spoon Curve. And now we'll have to go back to the live pictures because there is Yunho Park, and he is now down in P11. So something's happened to him. We'll cycle it back on the replay.
Now, how in the world did that happen? A RaceSpotTV replay to give us exactly those answers. Don't tell me they make contact at the S's. That's the last place in the world you want to do something like that. Sends it down the inside. That is an audacious one. Coming up towards the Degners and...
Oh, it's just maybe a little bit of contact. I'm gonna check it again. We'll try and get a better view of this. Let's try and do the not that view. That was absolutely useless to us. But we'll get to see the chopper view here. See exactly what happened between the two of them. Is there a little bit of contact? Just the slightest of taps there on the side-by-side into the first and second Degners, and that just spits Yunho Park out into the grass. Thankfully, he doesn't hit any barriers, so that car is looking clean in terms of damage, but he's got a long road back now.
He's got a long road back, but not as long as one may think, because if Yunho Park can just get 3 more positions, well, not 3 more, yeah, if he can get 3 more positions, he will be in reverse grid pole position, which will mean that the big feature race would start with Yunho Park in pole position, and his big rival, Jae-Hyuk Lim, well, he's going to be back there at P number 8, and imagine how big of a win that one could be for him. 6 minutes, 3 positions to make up. It's like those Gran Turismo scenario modes, isn't it?
It is. You gotta go try and do the challenge, and well, it's an unwilling challenge for Yunho Park, but it's a because he was kind of put into this situation. But it's a challenge nonetheless. I'm gonna keep my eye out to see if there are any penalties that are applied from that one. I don't think so, because that looked close enough, really, just to be a racing incident more than anything else. Someone's off in the background though. That is Junwon Choi. And from Redcon Motorsports, having some problems coming out the second deck.
Yeah, really easy to make a mistake at the second Degner. Such a hard corner, really challenges a lot from the driver. Here's him entering the first one. Coming up now. Where has he made the mistake? And what part of the Degners? It's in the middle. On the way to the entry of the second one, carries a bit too much speed again. The GTE braking is something that can catch so many people out. Junwon Choi learning it the hard way around, but I see some damage to the front end of his car as well, so maybe he might have been involved in some incident of any sort. Yeah,
here's the closest battle on circuit though. This is the battle now for P2 between Jungmin Lee and Youngmin Lee, excuse me, and Young Tak Lee. So the two Youngs, at least for the first syllable of those names, Youngmin Lee, Young Tak Lee, deciding that maybe this might be the time to battle. They are starting to run out of the time though. with the 5 minutes that we have remaining. So just a handful of laps to go, but podium order still may be in question.
It could very well be, and Young Min Lee has been sim racing for 4 years. He knows exactly what these pressure moments, these clutch situations are all about. He has to channel in that sort of experience to keep this position. Because when someone so fierce like Young Tak Lee could be behind you and he occupies 100% of your mirror, that can be quite disconcerting for any driver in the world. So you've got to make sure that you have your hopes and dreams all calmed down, all settled in, because right now his only focus should be the next corner and navigating out the next 4 minutes.
Oh, and a bit of a shot to the back bumper there from Young Tak Lee onto Young Min Lee. So they're getting so close that they're actually making contact into some of these corners, and well, it wasn't a tap that really meant anything this time around. It didn't unsettle the car of the number 77 ahead, but again, it's just one of those things where it's more of a mental game. Is he going to go for the tap again here into the apex? No tap, but yeah, sometimes you can get a little physical. Of course, not so much that you draw the attention of the stewards, but a couple of love taps, they didn't hurt anyone.
Yeah, especially with GTE cars, they can deal with some of that. They're built like tanks, so you touch them a little bit, they'll be totally okay. Not advisable, by the way, but still, something that can work out. But I wonder how many 0x's they might have collected so far, considering how close they have been racing.
Yeah, there's been a couple of taps here. We do have an instant limit, so we have every 20 incidents you get a drive-through penalty, and then if you hit 70 incidents, then you'll be disqualified. I don't think anyone's going to hit 70 incidents here today, but here comes Young Tak Lee then, around the outside at turn number 1 over Young Min Lee. Can Young Min decide to defend on the inside here? It looks like he can. Is there a cutback opportunity coming off the corner? Yes, there is, as Young Tak Lee tries to go for it into the exit section, but it's so difficult to try and draw yourself alongside coming up through here.
It is. And he's going to try it at the S's, which is not advisable at all. But look at the intensity. It's like he's constantly pressurizing and reminding him that, mate, maybe only 2 more minutes to go, but I am not going to take your position. I'm absolutely going to grab it from your hands and make it mine. Love the intensity right here.
Yeah, brilliant stuff indeed. It's so crazy seeing these guys go absolutely wheel to wheel. Here's the view from the rear of Young Min Lee's car in the E-Euro car. No dive down the inside into the hairpin from Young Tak Lee. As you can see, he's looking for the inside off the corner. He's just looking, okay, I'm just going to try and apply as much pressure as is feasibly possible, because he wants that P2, he wants the points in his bank account, and now he might look to the inside here for Spoon Curve. It will be side by side between the two of them then, as is there a bit of contact in the corner. There's a little bit of a shove that spits Young Min Lee wide, and now Young Tak Lee takes P2, but I don't think this is done by any means, because Young Tak Lee is slow off the corner, and now they can go side by side, wheel to wheel, coming down the back straight in towards 130R. Is anyone going to back out of this one? I'm going to say no. They'll go side by side into 130R. Young Min Lee has to be careful not to gain the position there, because if you gain the position by going off track, then you can get a penalty. He's still looking for the inside into the triangle. Nothing doing there though, but look at what it's done, Sumel. It's brought Ye Hee Han back into this.
Indeed, and for Ye Hee Han, he could use the draft. Maybe he could do something at turn number 1. Look at this, aggressive swerving to make sure that the other driver does not get the draft. Does it matter to Young Min Lee? Of course it doesn't. To the outside line he goes to make a move. Gets the apex, gets the nose right here, but he needs a good run, and that run he certainly gets. He is up to P number 2.
Yep, he is. There's still some different lines going on here, let me say that. And I have to say, Mingyu Song is also gaining time on these guys because of how much they've been battling. So soon we'll see it be a 4-car battle for P2, and Junhui Kim is also not that far behind. So potentially it might be a 5-car battle on this last lap. Remember, this is the last lap here at the moment. 30 seconds left remaining on the clock, still all to play for P2. There's the guy at the very front of Jae-Hook Lim, who's been absolutely brilliant. Of course, he was involved in that fight early on with Yun-Ho Park, but he ends up trying to come out on top. And now look at this for the battle for P2, though. They almost went 2 by 2 like Noah's Ark through the hairpin, and now looking at this through the 200R, which is this long right-hander here before they get themselves on towards Spoon Curve. Here comes Tak then down the inside, shoves Young Min out, of the first part of the Spoon and Curve. The stewards will be looking at that for sure. Jae Han in third in line here. Mingyu Song, Juhui Kim, all in this big old train for P number 2. We'll get the leader coming across the line in just a second, but I don't want to step away from this battle whatsoever. There's the position being given back, though. I think he was told that by the steward. So Young Min Lee up into P2, and we'll see Mingyu Song looking to try and go for P3. This is the battle for the final podium spot in this pack now, as Young Tak Lee tries to hold on to that third place. He goes out into the grass and the gravel. There's a little bit of contact afterwards as Jae Han, no, he doesn't get it. Junhui Kim has got himself through on a couple of cars to come P3, as it'll get all confusing there towards the end on our timing. But there's the man of the moment that won the race, Jae-Hook Lim, after a great early battle with Yunho Park. Able to keep clean through the rest of the race and come away with the first sprint race win here at the AMX Esports Championship.
What just happened? Oh my word, that was a finish. Oh, I love it when it just gets you at the edge of your seat. Not clean at all. Clearly that happened, but it's just what happens when two drivers just don't back out. Eventually it had to happen. Eventually someone had to concede. It was just inevitable. It was just bound to happen. But the way the race finished, the way we saw that crazy battle for P number 2, if that's not a trailer for what's going to come up this season, I don't know what is. Bring it on.
That is absolutely crazy stuff. There he is, the man of the moment, Jae-Hyuk Lim, winning the first ever race of the AMX Esports Championship. And let's have a look. There's Young Min Lee, who's involved in that big battle for P2. Somehow Young Min Lee comes out on top in that one, and it was officially Jun Hui Kim that comes P3. Our timing went a bit hectic at the end there. I don't think our timing even knew who came P3 there. But in the end, it officially comes through as Jun Hui Kim in P3. But speaking of results, though, or Jun Ho, excuse me, I do... I do apologize for that. Sometimes the pronunciation is a little bit tricky for an English speaker such as myself. But let's have a look then at the race results here from the from race number 1, sprint race here in the AMX Esports Championship. Jae-Hook Lim, P1, and Young Min Lee, P2, Jun Hui Kim and Jae-Hee Han, Young Tak Lee, P5, Sun Hui Hong, and Chi Young Park in P7. By the way, at the very end there, we didn't quite catch it, but Yunho Park did get himself up into P8. Yeah. And what's that? That is the reverse grid pole position. So great stuff from Park on the recovery.
Challenge aced. Yunho Park, of course he was helped out by that big crash that we saw at the end, but Yunho Park, at the final lap, I was tracking his progress. He was in P number 9, and he was a few seconds away from the car up ahead. I thought, poor Yunho, he's tried so hard, but he's just not going to get that reverse grid pole position until the race went bonkers. And imagine how crazy he's going to be feeling right now, that he has got a chance to avenge what really was, honestly, a terrible race for him in the first half.
Yeah, absolutely. My words. There's the top 10. Here's the second page. Dookie Lee in P11 there. Jong in P12, and then the rest of the fields further down that might have had a couple of problems, but I'm very impressed with the opening couple of laps here that we've seen of the race that we saw, even because I was expecting a couple of instances there on the first lap, maybe even down in towards turn number 1 as drivers were getting in over their heads. But I think everyone kind of learned from the practice races and said, okay, we've had this problem before. We're just going to take it a little bit easier on the first lap here, and look at what it resulted in. Just a brilliant, brilliant race.
It evolved. We saw it happen like a traditional race where we saw some chaos in the first lap. But then that's where it started to settle. And by settle, it did not get boring because the battles at the top were so superb. We got peppered in with a big moment with Junho having that major accident. And at the end, it just exploded. If that's the sort of drama that we're getting here, good. I mean, everyone's going to be watching. Everyone's going to be loving the kind of sim racing up on offer over here.
Yeah, that was crazy. That was probably the best race I could have really expected from around number one. Of course, we potentially could have had that P1 battle go to the end and whatever, but it looks like that we still had the next best thing, right? We had this absolutely bombastic final battle for the podium positions, which pick any one of those cars in that line of like 5 or 6 cars, they could have finished in any order. That's what I'm talking about here.
True, and that means that there'll be quite a few angry drivers, and angry racing drivers can sometimes make for some really good racing. So I wonder how they'll perform in the upcoming 30-minute race, because they've got a mission. They want to show that, okay, my finishing position is not capable, is not a perfect representation of my talent. What can they go out and do there? They really want to go and prove out a lot, especially with the guys that they make contact to. So unlike the junior drivers, here they have a second chance at the same track.
Yeah, they have a second chance, and I can't wait for it because we have that reverse grid. I think at least this plays straight into Yunho Park's advantage, though, because with the reverse grid starting P8, he can run away at the front of the field just like he did in qualifying, just like he did in practice. But if he has another issue, if one of those drivers behind gets a bit too overeager, they're saying, okay, I got a good reverse grid position here, I got it up into P2, P3 or whatever, I want to go for P1, and I don't care who's in the race lead. I don't care that it's someone who's half a second a lap faster than me. I still want that glory of going for P1.
Yep, and there's no reason why they shouldn't do something quite like that. In fact, I think it'll be very intense in the first couple of laps because all the drivers will recognize that Junho Park has that raw pace. So might as well attack at the top, might as well nab that position from him, much like we saw right here in the sprint race. So expect a few moves around the outside of turn number 1. Expect a few moves on the first lap as well, because Junho Park now has a target on his back. Instead of being the one hunting everyone down, he's going to be hunted again for the second time. So 2 pole positions for Junho Park. What can he make of it this time out after making a bit of a hash of it in the first time?
We'll answer that question after this commercial break. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
미쉐린, 미식의 길을 안내하다. Michelin, motion for life.
Welcome back, everyone, to the AMX Esports Championship. Our first online round is basically almost done. We've just got one more race to go, and then we will see what the points order is at the very end of this one. But what a fantastic sprint race that we've had here in the AMX Esports Championship. Now we'll be heading and going through the grid for race number 2. So that's the situation here. In fact, we had a little bit of a late grid change as well. So it is not Yunho Park on pole position here. It will instead be the driver of Mingyu Song. Yunho Park, he's still on the front row though, so at least he doesn't fall foul of not getting the reverse grid. But that's the situation there. Maybe there was a post-race penalty applied by the iRacing system that resulted in a little bit of a confusion in terms of the order there. But you can see that Mingyu Song pole position, Yunho Park in P2, Chiyong Park in P3, Seo Noi Hong in P4, Jae-hee Han in P5, and Jun Hui Kim in P number 6 here today. So, Sumil, it's maybe not the most ideal situation for Yunho Park. He isn't starting P1, so doesn't get the inside into towards turn number 1, but still front row, it's not bad.
Exactly, but imagine being angry for gaining a position in the race. That's what happened for Yun Ho Park. He'll be frustrated that the stewards actually awarded him one more position, but still, as you mentioned, not too bad eventually in the grand scheme of things. We've seen P number 2 get a good edge in the first race. Maybe we can see something special right here. Jae-hook Lim is in that position now in P number 8. He's got a lot to counter. Same can be said for the likes of Hee Jung-an, Tuk Hee Lee, Yong Wil-chung and Hong So-jang, who are lining up in P8, 9, 10, 11 and 12 respectively.
See the rest of them. You see Dongjun Kim in P13, Young-tak Lee P14, Jeonwon Choi in P15, Jae-hak Lee in P16 here today. Hui-sung Lee P17, Hang-sung Lee P18. And then at the very, very final row of the starting grid, it's Jin-han Lee and Yong-jae Lee. Those two drivers in P19 and P20 respectively here. So, that's the grid here for race number 2. They're about to get rolling here, in fact, as they'll get themselves prepped and ready. It's Mingyu Song on pole position for this one, Sumil, so maybe if they can put on a good defensive drive, they'll be able to at least hold on to some good track position.
Indeed, for Mingyu Song, this one is going to be all about the defensive skill. At Suzuka, it is doable. The lines are blockable. It may mean doing some little bit of dirty driving, borderline dirty driving and irritating the other drivers. But if that's what gets you the win, go for it. This one is going to be even more interesting because this is going to be sequel to an already crazy race.
It absolutely is. So we're winding up then for the first ever main race of the AMX Esports Championship. Reverse grid in effect for this one. That's benefited Mingyu Song in that 999 car on driver's left-hand side, heading up that left-hand lane there, as we'll see ourselves the race started in just a couple of moments' time. Remember, they have to go on green and they can't move out of the lane before they see the green flag. And now here comes the green flag. Someone goes all the way to the pit wall to try and get themselves a good start here. Mingyu Song away well, though, at least at the start, but there's been a big incident behind, collecting a good couple of cars there. My word, there's more drama, and someone's up on their roof there, as there's a huge incident here early on.
Some of the big names, Jae-hak Lee seemingly involved in that one. Yong-jae Lee also, Jin-han Lee too. Lots of drivers from the midfield. And Jae-hee Han, who was fighting so high in that order in the first race, Conry, he's been taken out.
Yep, here's his view of things. Here's the onboard with Jae-hee Han, trying to get a good start. You see a lot of jostling for position ahead of him. Does he get tagged around? Oh, it's just 3 into 1 doesn't go. And in fact, they were 4 abreast there coming in towards turn number 1. And there's the big impact for Jae-hee Han, someone who got a very, very good result in race number 1. Unfortunately, now has damage in that tail end of race number 2.
And that BMW, man, it'll be nursing so much of damage. And at Suzuka, a track where you need so much of driver skill and the car to be with you, that won't be helping out, but that's secondary, because right now on your screen we are seeing teammates go for it, and there's a big error.
There's a big error from Hee Jung-an, and now he's having to fight in amongst Young Min Lee. Almost gets squeezed off the circuit there. It's a whole bunch of congested traffic here. This is what the reverse grid does. With the faster drivers starting in P6, 7, 8, they have to try and work their way through the field on the slower traffic that started ahead of them to try and get up into that race lead. I gotta say though, Mingyu Song has done very well in this first lap. Here comes Young Min Lee trying to go around the outside of Hee Jung-an. Young Min Lee still has the inside there for the Casio triangle, looking to try and find some speed off the corner now, in through the final corner. You've got to be a little bit careful here. Maybe not so much here in these cars, but in some cars you can get squirrely through there as it's going downhill and it's slightly off camber too. But look at this, side by side, Young Min Lee and Hong So Yang, excuse me, in the back of the shot there. They make contact through turns 1 and 2, but they save it.
Somehow, man, this is ending up to be crazy. I thought in the 30 minutes the drivers would calm down a little bit more, focus more on the long run, but seemingly for them, The reverse grid means a greater hurry, a greater urgency to get more positions, and you can see it in the way they drive. But look at the big winners. Someone like Dookie Lee, who did not quite have the best race in the first sprint race, is now up in P number 4, using his 20 years of sim racing experience to get up to that position. What can he make of it right now in that big battle for P number 1, where Yunho Park has finally built out a breathing space?
Yeah, he got the pass done, didn't he? Well, I'm going to cycle things back to try and see if I can find where that happens before these guys start to get themselves a fight going on. This is the battle for P3, just briefly side by side between Chi Young Park and Dookie Lee. But yeah, that's the situation here. I'm going to try and find where exactly the Yunho Park got himself past. I think it was coming down in towards turn number 1, but let's have a look. There he is in second place, moving to the outside. Around the outside of Mingyu Song. Can he hold it? Oh, he's got to be careful about that, though, because if the stewards deem that he was off track at any point during that, then he might have to give the position back.
That's absolutely right, and that'll be harder to do now that the gap between Yunho Park and Mingyu Song is 1.3 seconds. So imagine how much time he'll have to lose if something like that happens. If not, maybe a penalty could be in case. Just speculating. I doubt that something like that would be happening at this case. I think he was just okay. And for Mingyu Song right now, he's under pressure from Chi-Hong Park and Dookie Lee, both of whom are setting out some crazy laps. Dookie Lee went out right there at the last time out and set in the fastest lap of the race. He's on a certain charge right now, and for his team, he wants a really big result because in the sprint race, could be a lot better for him.
Yeah, it could well be. You know, some drivers, prefer these longer races where maybe they're not the best qualifier, for example, so they sort of get stuck at the middle of the pack for sprint racing, and then that's their objective, to try and get into the reverse grid and try and get a good spot for the main race. But you can also, if you outside of the reverse grid pole positions, you still have a lot more time in this race to make out those positions if you have a bit of a better race pace than what you have on your qualifying pace. But Yunho Park is currently stretching his legs at the front of the field. I think we kind of expected that to happen once the pass was done, but it still is this big old titanic battle for P2.
It is indeed. In the back we see Jae-Hook Lim, make a move too, but now it's the time of Jae-Hyun Park to make a move, but instead he makes an error, goes onto the grass and loses tons of time.
If there's one thing you don't want to do in iRacing, it's get onto the grass, as we will see that happen through 200R. So here's the run into the hairpin for Chi-Young Park from DCT Racing. You can see him swing out right to the left-hand side here in just a couple of moments. He gets the run, fair enough. He's looking for the run, but run out of road a little bit, and 2 tyres on the grass.
Bit of a naughty one, isn't there? I mean, he tried. He was just willing to go to any lengths whatsoever to get that position, and those any lengths mean that sometimes you might have to become the world's fastest lawnmower as well.
Certainly one way to think about it. These cars do ride quite low. Look at all this defending all the way to the pit wall there for Dookie Lee, I think it was. So Dookie Lee trying to defend on the inside from Chi-Young Park. Oh, there's a bit of contact. Dookie Lee committed to the corner a little bit too much. Shoves Chi-Young Park out to dry through turns 1 and 2. They're still battling side by side to the SS section, but Dookie Lee gets tagged around and spins in front of traffic. He ends up pointing the right way. Careful with the rejoin. Oh. But you got to get up to racing speed on the racing line, that's for sure. But let's take another look at that one.
Oh my goodness, that's what happens when you're going so hard with someone. If nobody's willing to budge, eventually someone will spill over, and this is what we saw. Right there, could have been so much worse, right? They could have taken out so many more cars. Fortunately for the race, unfortunately for the drivers, this is the way it ended for Dookie Lee. Good on him that he did not make contact with anyone else. Right now, his dream feature race has gone off the rail. It's derailed at this stage, but it's not too bad, I would say. It's only P number 8, so he gets a few decent points. There's a good chance to counter. There's a good chance to show exactly the sort of pace that he was showing early on by setting those major fastest laps.
Yeah, I'm just looking on board with Young Tak Lee at the moment because he almost got collected in that instant. You can see them going side by side ahead of him. So as a driver, you're looking at that going, well, I got to be careful here. If they make contact, I might have to try and avoid an instant. There's the contact there. And look at the reactions from Young Tak Lee. There we go. Just about gets to the inside. Picks the right lane. It's so easy to pick the left-hand side there, and all of a sudden you got a car in front of you.
Exactly. And imagine how scary that must be. And imagine after having a scare like that, getting back to the right track, getting back to focusing on consistent lap times. This racing thing is not that easy, you know?
It's not, apparently. Well, I think I know that more than anyone else with my terrible, terrible iRating. But here's the battle for P2. Mingyu Song trying to hold on from Chi Young Park. Chi Young Park looking to the outside through turn 1 and looking to gain the position, and does. What a confident move there. There might be a little bit of contact through turn 2 there, but that was a dominant move there from Chi Young Park, able to just swing by and get up into that second place.
Indeed, riding with some confidence Chi Young Park right now. And for his team, this might be such a big result because second place in the main race gives you 12 points. And for him, closing up to a 6.5 second gap is going to be some challenge, but it's 20 minutes. You never know. Those 12 points could become 15.
Yeah, they really could. So yeah, we'll have to pay attention to the points order because remember, you know, they're competing for their teams first and foremost. It's a teams championship technically, even though different members of the teams compete on different weeks. They're still a team's event, even though they're solo races, so to speak. So you got to be conscious of that fact. Jung Ho Park at the very front, doing very, very well at the moment. There, he's the class of the field, I would say, at the moment in the DCT e-racing car, and it's been a good day, at least for DCT at the moment, because they're P1, they're P2, and they're not P3, but P1-2, 1-2 finish for DCT racing. That would be not too bad. Of course, they're counted as separate teams, but under the same banner.
Exactly. And how big of a platform is this for all the top Korean sim racing teams? I mean, imagine all the mainstream fans, the way I'd like to put them, coming in, looking at the first round, enjoying this hardcore racing action that we're getting, and taking a look. And look, it's two DCT cars right at the very top. That sets in such a big image. Think of it. How did you become a Formula 1 fan? When you were watching, perhaps there might be Ferrari dominating. You see those red cars. That's the first image that gets put up into your mind for these teams right now. This is a big opportunity to establish themselves in a country that's growing in the world of motorsport.
Hee Jung-an going down the inside of Youngmin Lee. This is the battle for P5 up on screen now. They continue to go wheel to wheel through turn number 2. And still neck and neck all the way up through the S's section. They have to be careful because it gets a little bit congested here. And Youngmin Lee just about squeezes ahead through those apexes there. But they got oh so close.
As it always seems to do now. It seems to be somewhat of a trend right here that the drivers just want to push the limits and send it. And that's the kind of racing that we all know and love, even more so in GT cars. Normally drivers would be more conservative. They would understand that the M8 is a proper big boy, as the internet likes to call it, and they would calm down. But no, here they don't wait for spaces to come up. They make their own spaces on the track.
Yeah, and now, you know, because they went side by side for such an extended period of time, it's brought a couple of other drivers. Guess what? Jae-Hook Lim is coming back through this as well. Of course, he had a little bit of a concerning problem with, of course, that opening lap incident, which slowed him up by a huge amount, but he's now back into the thick of things. Youngmin Lee, Hee Jung-an still going side by side. Youngmin Lee on the inside of the spoon curve, able to keep it going and get it done. But here comes the run from Hee Jung-an off the corner. Let's see if he's able to make some progress. Look at that, there's the onboard, there's the move to the outside. Now they'll go wheel to wheel up towards 130R, and Hee Jung-an has been able to gain the position once again. So they negotiate the swap. Is there a dive down into the triangle though from Youngmin? Not quite, but they're all stacked up nose to tail.
Very good racing. And right now for Youngmin Lee, well, he might be scratching his head wondering what more did I have to do? What more could I have done to keep Hee Jung-an behind? At the front, there's also another move happening seemingly for second place. And Young-Tak Lee, well, he's moved up a position. He's passed up also to Mingyu Song. And Mingyu, he's in a good position, but he seems to be in somewhat of a steady decline since the start of the race.
I mean, Mingyu did have the reverse grid pole position, so, you know, benefited a whole bunch in terms of that one, but, you know, it's kind of, I would say, a little bit natural. Oh, look at that! A little bit of light flashing there from Mingyu Song. Technically not allowed by the rules, but showing a little bit of frustration there. So we'll go back and have a look to see if there's anything that did cause that frustration. But I wouldn't have thought there'd be it would be too much of a problem. Here's the move. You'll be able to see down in towards turn number 1. So this is Chi-Young Park going down the inside, and oh, it was an aggressive move, but I tell you what, he didn't run him out of roads. He kept it on the grey stuff between the white lines. I would say that's fair, even if aggressive.
100%. As I said early on, if they don't find any space, they go out there and make their own space. And luckily, it's within the track limits. That right there is a textbook overtaking move at turn number 1. That's how you get things done. And it might be frustrating because you blocked out all the corners, but the other driver still comes up and produces something like you're seeing on the screen right now. Young Lee having to defend crazily, and it's a last race winner. Jae-Hook sending it to the inside.
Jae-Hook on the inside of Young Min. Let's see if he's able to get it done into 130-yard, drives it in hard. Young Min has to go out of the circuit, and again, he has to be careful, because if it's Stewart's team, he's defended that position via going wide as Dookie Lee. He just overcommitted into the triangle and spun in front of everyone. There were bits of contact there. I hope not major contact, but yeah, that was... I think Dookie Lee saw the eyes bigger than his stomach there, and has got himself into a bit of an awkward situation. But let's just have a look.
This is just so tricky to watch. I mean, for Young Min Lee, he did everything correct. Then, of course, blocking off, but I think it was a bit too aggressive right there from Dookie Lee. Eventually, it was not going to work right there. I thought that he might just get the jump, but no. Eventually, when you make a move at a corner like that one, you're a bit of a targetless torpedo when you've not got the braking under your control, and that eventually ended up happening slightly similar. Not completely, but slightly similar to the accident that we saw in the junior race where the cars just turned up after some braking. Man, so unfortunate. So unfortunate.
Yeah, it really is. And, you know, because that was shaping up to be a really great battle between those two guys there. And that group of cars. In fact, oh, someone's had a bit of a problem. Is that Junhui Kim having a problem? There's Julian Choi and, oh my word, Youngjae Lee all going side by side. Here coming in towards the hairpin, and now there's going to be alternate lines coming off for this one. This is the battle for P number 9 between Dookie Lee, and Junwon Choi. Got a little bit confused there in terms of the exact drivers, but after that incident though, Dookie Lee still trying to hold on to positions, even though he's probably got a little bit of damage to that BMW M8.
But the problem is not the damage to the M8, but the problem is the damage to his momentum. He's had 2 major accidents in this race. Is he still in the right zone? Of course, 20 years of sim racing experience. Dookie Lee knows it all, has done it all, has seen through it, and has been through it. So that might be able to help him in getting on there and staying with that high pace that he brings up to the competition. And hopefully does not get involved in another incident, because so far it's been very unfortunate for Dookie Lee. Getting back to rhythm is going to be critical. Just like these guys, for them, it's going to be critical for them to get the position up on each other.
Yeah, so look at all that towards the pit wall in the background, though. I'm going to switch back to it because they all wanted to cover off that inside line. Junhui Kim, now it's Dookie Lee trying to go around his outside in towards turn 1 and 2, but finds no momentum out there. Looking for that characteristic cutback off of turn 2, but not going to be able to do anything like that. Here's the ride on boards then with Junwon Choi. And let's see if he's able to pick up the pieces, just in case the guys ahead of him have a bit of a problem with each other.
Media Dirty might be a bit of a problem right now, heading towards the S's. Just have to tiptoe your way around this part of the track, coming up towards the Degners, and Junwon Choi seems to be right there. I think he seems to be lining up a longer term move right now, but this does not help Connery. Commentator's curse 101.
Yeah, I think you're going to have to apologise to him there.
Sorry, Junwon. Yeah. I think I'll have to knock on some wood when I speak about a driver next time on.
Let's not talk about you and knocking on wood, Tim. I think that would be a bad idea. But you gave us a perfect giggle in the RaceSpot chat. But here comes the battle, though. Dookie Lee to the inside at Spoon Curve. That's an optimistic move there with a big swing out. And it caused Junwon Junhui Kim to really deviate his line, because he was expecting the full commitment down the inside, so he kind of wanted to leave the space. He didn't end up needing to, but that's just what some aggressive shows of the nose can do. And now it looks like Dookie Lee is going to go to the inside for 130R. How many times have we seen side-by-side through 130R in this race? It must be in the double digits now.
Exactly, it's insane to see how crazy the battling has been so far at 130R. And I initially thought that, okay, the drivers might be going a bit too docile at that corner, trying to understand what's going on, take it easy. But no, they seem to be unbothered by that, especially Dookie Lee, just going mighty aggressive.
Yeah, here's the onboard with Junhui Kim. Oh, he's got to be careful. Oh, Dookie Lee's overcommitted. He's overcommitted to turn 1 and 2, and now that might give the opportunity to Junfun Choi to be able to get through. He'll fight side by side with him up through the middle, the first sector here. Can Dookie Lee hold on to this one? It was a mistake that put him into it. It's still side by side through these apexes, but it is Junwon Choi able to get ahead. And oh, no, not like that. Dookie Lee looking for the inside and punts the driver off.
Yeah, for Dookie Lee, I think it has to be one of his most messy races of all times. 3 big incidents for him. He'll not be making any friends with driving quite like that, unfortunately. Here's a look at what happened right there. Perhaps getting a bit too aggressive, Connery, getting a bit too eager to make those positions up. That's where the patience really starts to run off. And for Dookie Lee, this really is such a big one. And imagine, what if you're Junwon Choi? You're doing such a good job in holding up positions, and more importantly, he was committed to his line. He did not make any unpredictable moves, but still got taken out.
I think we might be seeing a penalty come through for Dookie Lee, to be honest, from that one. I haven't really seen that many incidents that have been worthy of penalties so far this really entire event, but I think that's one. I'm always reluctant to sort of say if someone should get a penalty or not as a commentator, because it's gotten me into a bit of strife before with a couple of drivers, but it's I think that's sort of one of those sort of slam dunk cases.
Yeah, it really is. And I think, hopefully, we may see Dookie Lee just understand that, right, such aggressive driving may be entertaining, but does not help out in the long run. Again, easier said than done, right, in the heat of the moment. Probably I would have done something even worse. That's why I've got an iRacing rookie license and I haven't progressed beyond that one. But it's hard. It's hard to keep your composure and keep your emotions in a moment like this one. But more importantly, it's not just losing points for yourself. You're losing points for the entire team, and that's the stinger when the prize money is so high and when the pride is on offer in this championship.
Yeah, there was a little bit of action going on down here in the bottom end of the field. There's Jae-Hak Lee. I think he just got himself past Hong Seo-jan over the last couple of moments. I think that was into the Casio Triangle that time around. So there are a couple of things happening towards the very back of the field. It's minor points paying positions, yes, but these small points might just matter at the very end of the season. That's for sure. You know, because we've had championships before, so that have only been separated by a couple of points, and it could be a race like this where you need those couple of points.
Exactly. This is where every single lap counts. And you have to dig in, you have to realize the long-term consequences of it. And you really can't slack off, because if you do, somebody else might go ahead, somebody else might put that lovely race and may get the edge on you eventually. I mean, think of it. Niki Lauda Alain Prost decided by half a point. Okay, I mean, half a point doesn't happen in the world of sim racing, but still, so many chances in Grand Prix racing, which normally isn't as close as this, have ended up being decided by a point. Imagine what could happen when the championship is this close. I can only imagine what it might be like at round number 18. I don't know who are going to be the competitors for the championship, but by that stage, the championship might transform into something that we haven't quite seen before, with newer names coming up with the initiatives. Perhaps drivers who we may not see in the top 10 right now, growing in confidence and getting something big later on.
Yeah, and I know for a fact that I have commentated on championships, even last year, where it came down, ooh, what's going on here? Someone having a problem. I'm not spotting it just yet, but it always concerns me when the timing screen goes all green and red like that. It usually means that someone's either had a technical issue or has had to take a tow back to pit lane and things like that. So Not so at the moment. I'm not seeing anyone too out of position compared to where they were. But like I was saying before, though, I have commentated on championships where it came down to not like 1 or 2 points at the end, but enough points for it to be one position, the difference. I commentated a race where the guy that ended up being in second place only needed to gain 1 more position at the end of the race to take the championship. He was half a second away at the end.
Oh, imagine how close that must be. So close yet so far.
Yeah. So this is why every single point matters. Even if you have a bad race, you go down towards the bottom of the order, some such. That's the situation where it's you've got to not count yourself out, right? You've got to keep in it, even if you are cycled down to P17 or something. You've got to keep going because you never know what might happen ahead of you. Other people might have problems, and you can pick up the positions. Meanwhile, battle for P4 on the way in towards 130R. Mingyu Song holding on very well against Hee Jung-an.
Exactly. And it's those sort of moments, Connery, that you're talking about. It's exactly why Yoon Ho Park got pole position. He, of course, was involved in a very, very heavy battle, but if he had written himself off after that crash, would we see him leading the race right now? And in fact, this means that you can see moves like this one when drivers recognize that all the time is go time around the outside. That right there is super entertaining stuff. And has he got it done eventually?
Yeah, Hee Jung-an not quite just yet. Almost make a little bit of contact into the next left-hander. Now there is contact, and Hee Jung-an spat out into the gravel as Mingyu Song remains in P4. Yeah, we've seen a couple of incidents like that already with going side by side through the S's section. It only requires just the slightest of taps, and you just make contact and you have a big slide like that.
Exactly, and the BMW M8 GTE, it's a big machine. Controlling it is just such a hard one. You take a look at this, the intensity of battle. You touch, what more can you do like that? How quickly can you counter steer? Not when you're battling so hard. When the car spins on itself, yeah, perhaps, but not so much. Poetry in motion, but for Hee Jung-an, it seems to be points lost.
Yeah, it really is. He drops all the way back into P7, so not actually that many positions lost in the grand scheme of things, and I don't think he would have too much damage to that car due to the sort of nature of the incident. But I would say right now that this battle for P4 still is not done. There's still 3 cars involved in this one. Of course, we might, depending on Stewart's investigation, Mingyu Song might not be able to hold on to that, but still, you can't think about that as a driver. You still have to fight with what you've been given, and if there's a car behind you, you're still going to defend for your life even if you are under investigation.
Exactly, and even though we've seen drivers defend for their lives, some drivers have just found their way out somehow. It's like they have this miraculous pocket of space at this circuit where you can just zoom in and make a move. So what are we going to see right now? Jae-hyuk Lim, winner of the first sprint race, an excellent qualifier. Someone who's had tons of experience on the sim, and that experience means that he'll not make a move around the outside at turn number 1. He will wait for the better opportunity, and that is going to be the Casio triangle. That right there is conservative smart driving, because he knows at this stage, even if he gets past Mingyu Song, there's a big gap to Young-tak Lee. So might as well take it easy, take it calmly, and focus on getting that one position, but getting it right.
Getting it right is something that some drivers have failed to do, especially coming through just the section that we just went through. Sometimes in online racing, you need to give a little bit more space than you would do in real life, because you have all these networking related things that go on. So you can't exactly run trading paint a lot of the time in online racing. You have to give the car's width plus a little bit more just to be sure.
That's absolutely right. But for so many drivers, they're so focused on their own race, they can't be bothered about what the others are doing. Not the right code of conduct, by the way, in the world of motorsport if you're just someone just joining in. But can happen, can be so aggressive that you can't check your mirrors. For Mingyu Song, he's doing a good job. He's doing something that Fernando Alonso would be proud of, because he's left enough space right there for Jae-hyuk Lim. But for Jae-hyuk Lim, he still wants to be touching, and that touching has cost him some time. And so Young-min Lee has got the position.
Yeah, you can see how aggressive that Jae-hyuk was going then. He's looking to the outside now at the 130R. That's optimistic. That's Youngmin Lee on Mingyu Song. So Youngmin Lee looking to try and get 2 positions in basically a quarter of the lap here at the moment, which would be an absolutely impressive feat. If he can get a good run now at the final corner, then that's a penalty perhaps from Jae-hook Lim. He comes down on towards the pit lane. So yeah, that's an interesting one. And now we'll see the battle for P4 still rage on between Mingyu Song and Youngmin Lee. Youngmin looking around the outside through turn 2, not going to happen. No opportunity here in towards turn 3 either. We're starting to run out of time though. There's only 2 minutes left to go this one.
I think Mingyu Song might be saying internally, right, too many people have passed me by. 3 drivers have gone past me in this race. Youngmin, mate, I'm sorry, you might be a good friend. I am not going to let you pass though. It's that resolve, it's that steely determination that's keeping Mingyu Song up ahead. How long have we seen them fighting for, right? The last 10, 12 minutes? But he's still keeping at it. He's still blocking off the right lines and holding off multiple drivers. See, the commentators curse again. He almost lost it.
Yeah, he almost did. As now Mingyu Song looking to try and defend from Youngmin Lee. Still holding position here is Mingyu. He's doing a very stellar job at holding on to this one. I got to see what happened to Jae-hook because he's 31 seconds stopped on pit lane. So that wasn't a drive-through, if anything. It was just a flat-out pit stop, perhaps, or maybe a stop and hold. I didn't quite see what the official word was on any penalty there from Jae-hook, but yeah, that is an interesting one, and we'll have to see how things work out then, as I will get to see the protest sheet here in a little bit. I think the instant review sheet.
Yeah, very interesting stuff. I'm a bit curious to see what happened to Jae-hook because he was doing such a good job. A winner of our first sprint race, remember, so always big hopes to see which way his race might be going eventually. Not the right way if you're Jae-hook right now, just constantly heading away from you at this stage.
Oh, it was a 10-second time penalty, but I wouldn't have thought he'd have to come down towards the pit lane to serve that rule. Meanwhile, side by side between Mingyu Song and Youngmin Lee, maybe a little bit of confusion there, but we'll have to see that Mingyu Song, he's able to hold on to this position. He's still having a good job. There's Youngmin Lee looking to the inside through the left-hander, but again, there's just simply no space to do that here. Time expired now. This is the final lap.
Exactly. Last lap here, right, this one. For Youngmin, something tells me he's going to go for a last gasp effort, I beg your pardon. See, the excitement, grammar sometimes goes for an absolute toss. But right now, it seems like Mingyu Song is celebrating a bit too early. He's flashing his headlights, but there's one more big chance. Who knows what Youngmin Lee can do right now? He can transform himself and get that big one at the Casio Triangle, much like what we saw in the sprint race.
Youngmin Lee driving to the outside to try and get some progress done. We'll have to try and see where Yunho Park is though, because this is the guy that, well, got himself up into to first place very early on and then drove away from the rest of the field. He had a huge moment inside the sprint race where he fell towards the back of the field, but he got the reverse grid front row, and now he's gotten himself a race win in the main race of the AMX Esports Championship, round number 1 at Suzuka. It goes the way of Yunho Park in that number 20 DCT E-Racing car. And now we have a look back because we have 3 wide into 130R in this battle for P4. This is absolutely crazy. Yi Young-han holding on to position for now. Mingyu Song has lost it. Is there a punt into the Casio Triangle? No, there isn't. Mingyu Song stays in line. Can he get the drive off the corner to be able to get the run to the line? I don't think he can. Hee Jung-an finishes in P3, or rather P4 here today. Fantastic stuff there at the very end. We'll get a replay of that because we kind of caught the back end of the battle. But I knew those guys were going to go absolutely crazy at the end there, and they did. How about that? 3 wide.
Oh my God. Oh my. This is the trailer. This is what we're going to see all year long. And look at the narrative. Mingyu Song did not concede a position for the last 15 minutes, and when he did, it was in the most dramatic of fashions. Hee Jung-an.
He went from third in line to the front of the train.
Yeah, he must have had bravery pills for lunch today. I can't do that.
That's such an amazing move.
Wow.
And to complete it around the outside, he goes off the track in terms of track limits, so that will have to be investigated. But I don't want that to ruin what what Hee Young-An has done here. That is crazy there, crazy pass for P4 at the very end. But I gotta say though, again, the dominant man at the moment is this guy. There is Yun-Ho Park. What a great main race for him. He just needed, he got to the front and didn't put a foot wrong, which is all that he really needs to do.
And a double winner. He did that twice in the junior category and here in the major AMX Esports League as well. Take a bow, Yun-Ho Park. He's gone right there and has hit a home run in both categories on one day. How much better could that be?
Yeah, that's crazy stuff. He takes it down on towards the pit lane. Of course, some of the top 3 drivers and the winning coach will go to an interview as he slides into his pit box there. We'll go to an interview with the Africa TV guys who are running the Korean language stream of this one. But what a main race we've had. What a sprint race it was as well. But main race just seems like it just went from strength to strength there here today. And let's take a look then at your unofficial results here from the main race of the AMX Esports Championship. Round number 1, Yun-Ho Park wins for DCT E-Racing there, and it makes it DCT 1-2 as well, with Chi Young Park there in P2. Young-Tak Lee P3, and then Hee Jung-An after passing 2 cars in 130R at the end, which is craziness. He comes home P4. Mingyu Song P5, Youngmin Lee P6, Junhui Kim P7, Dookie Lee P8. He had a particularly troubling day here today. He might get himself some post-race penalties as well. Youngjae Lee in P9 and Hansung Lee in P10 here today. Then the bottom half of the field, Seonoi, sorry, I'm going to get these pronunciations right at some point. Seonoi Hong, I believe that's right. Jun Wyeon Choi, Dongjin Kim and Hong Seo Jang and Jung Pil Jung and Jinhan Lee. Taehyuk Lee down to P17. Jaehyuk Lim, what a sprint race it was for him, but not so much a main race as he had to take a penalty in the middle of that one. Hui Sung Lee and Jae Hee Han round out the P19 and 20th spots respectively here today. So, that's us done in terms of the racing, as we'll get ourselves our lovely faces on screen here in just a couple of moments' time. There we go. I gotta say, that was probably better than I could have ever expected. Not that I came in with low expectations, I just came in thinking, oh, it's just going to be a normal race, you know, normal storylines, but I wasn't expecting that much crazy action.
Especially that 3 wide at the final corner over the bridge. Just baffles me, right? You don't see stuff like that happen, but it's that sort of courage when you come onto a bigger platform, when you know everyone in the country is watching. Might as well go for it. Who knows? If you roll the dice, you might end up winning both the positions, and that is what happened. And for both the races as well, Conrad, it's not like it was a fluke. Lightning struck twice today. Yeah. Everything was intentional. Everything was just a perfect reminder that, right, this can happen and this will happen. Lovely.
Also, this is why I love Suzuka, because not only is it a brilliant track to drive, it gives the drivers a couple of overtaking opportunities. You know, you got at least 3 obvious ones, and then you can make things happen into other corners as well. So it's, yeah, I gotta say, what a brilliant event, what a brilliant first event. And if we're going to get more races like that, if we're going to get, you know, I would say not every race like that, but a good amount of races like that throughout the rest of the season, I would say that the Korean esports racing scene has a very bright future if these guys are able to do battle like that.
Exactly. It's all about the intensity. It's all about the drama that you get in those sort of races and those sort of events. And imagine someone tuning on dinner time in Korea. They come on, they look at this sort of battling going on, and all of a sudden they're like, yeah, I think I tune in to watch next week or next Thursday. Why not? And that's the sort of stuff that I hope that we're going to get throughout the season. But the best part is, it's not just in one format. It's not just circuit racing. So if you don't like circuit racing, totally all right. You might end up liking the oval races. We go to Daytona, we go to Charlotte, we go to a couple of other circuits as well. There's something for everybody.
Yeah, there absolutely is. And I gotta say, I'm super happy with how this event has turned out. Of course, we had our little issues in the junior race, but hopefully those guys can sort themselves out for race number 2 as well, and they can give us an amazing show, just like we've seen in the main AMX Esports Championship here. Thank you very much to all of our wonderful partners. You can see them on the bottom of your screen there. iRacing, Kolon Motors, Outbit, Michelin, Midas, Logitech G, BenQ, Next Level Racing, Car Rounds, just like all those guys that have decided to support the AMX Esports Championship, not just on the Korean stream, but here on the English stream as well. Thank you very, very much for all of your support. And I guess I kind of just have to wrap things up there because, of course, we're not going to be able to get any interviews due to them having to do it with Africa TV. But just to sum up what we've seen here, Sumil, what are your thoughts and, what are your expectations now coming into, say, the influencer round and the real-life driver round?
Of course, there are going to be peaks and troughs, that's for sure. Not every race can be this way, and not every race should be this way, because then it'll be a bit like Formula E. If every race is crazy and mad, then you kind of sort of don't appreciate it as much. So you need some slightly more docile ones. But I think the docile will be more interesting in a storyline point of view, because then you see drivers putting in commanding performances. Then you see what they can do evolving on later on. And then it's different, right? So all the races will not be just like that. We may not have all online races with just sim drivers. Next time out, it's going to be an influencer race at ovals. Then we're going to have the real world racing drivers coming up. It's a mixture of everything. And that mixture actually helps out with building up a really exciting championship that can keep you hooked on. So I personally, I'm in. I loved to see what happened here today, and I can't wait to see what more happens on the grander scheme of things. Because I know heading into the next round, it's going to be completely different from what we saw today, but in a very good way. We're going to get oval racing with influencers. Imagine how much fun that is going to be for them coming up and racing here.
It's going to be absolutely crazy, and well, there's not much practice in terms of foot to the floor going left, in terms of Daytona at least, in high downforce GT3 cars, but yeah, I can't wait for it, but that's going to be all that we have time for here today, here on the English stream of the AMX Esports Championship. Thank you guys very much for tuning in and watching. It's been an absolute pleasure for me personally to help try and put this together. I know there's so many other people behind the scenes that have put in hours and hours and hours and hours of work. Thank you very much to Automatics for organizing this event. Like I said, thank you very much to all our partners there at the bottom of the screen. Special shout outs to Hugo Luis, who's currently providing the world feed for the Korean stream, and of course Tyler Maxon for being our backup producer here as well. There's so many people that help out here, and it wouldn't happen without all of their combined efforts. So thank you from the very bottom of my heart. But that's the race number 1 done. We have lots more to go here in this season, including the live events. We'll be here for it on the RaceSpotTV, but for now, we will have to say goodbye.
미쉐린, 미식의 길을 안내하다. Michelin, motion for life.